But Tonya Sweat is green at the moment. My crazy camera. I got to get this thing fixed. I am
Going
a
home.
wife, a mother. I'm a Christian woman. I'm a veteran, a United States Air Force veteran. I'm a 27-year attorney. I'm a litigator, former federal regulator. Banking and finance was my specialty. And I'm a proud Prince Georgian. I'm a part of this community. And like everybody else, I want to see us thrive.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mrs. Sweat, you had such a diverse career from serving in the military, as you just stated, working in the federal government, and even running a restaurant. Which role has taught you the most surprising lesson about leadership?
Wow. You did your homework. Yes, I did run a restaurant for a little bit. Um, Running a restaurant actually was a big lesson. Being a veteran in the military, they teach you and they develop you as a leader. Those skills aren't tried until in the military you go to war. Or for me, literally becoming an entrepreneur and having to run a business and work with customers every day with different personalities, different desires, different wants, and then having to manage staff and getting them to understand that they were a reflection of my business. How you treat people is how people will see me, not how they see you. So that was a big test of my leadership ability and my ability to motivate staff, one, to be good in customer service, and two, teaching them how to deal with the public.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something they taught us in the military, that you have to motivate your subordinates and, find out what their needs or wants are. And, that's how we
Absolutely.
kind of come to a common point. So absolutely, I love that. That's something that you carry on, throughout your life.
Yeah.
You've called yourself a bit of a nerd, and I love that because I am too. What's one book or show or topic you could talk about for hours that people might not expect from you?
You know, I'm gonna have to go here. I am a devout Christian, but I don't wear my religion on my sleeve. You get me going in a good Bible conversation, and you'd be surprised the scriptures, one, that come out of my mouth.
Mhm.
And you'd also be shocked about how I have applied the word to my daily living.
Yeah.
And so every now and again, I catch people off guard. I'll say it this way, because they'll say things to me, and literally my initial response is to come back with something from the Bible and
Mhm.
explain how I apply it in my life. And they go, "Sweat, I didn't know you were a preacher too." I'm like, "I'm not a preacher."
Yeah, let them use you.
There it is.
And it is the basic instructions before leaving Earth. You spent over 2 decades in the DMV area. What's your favorite hidden gem in Prince George's County that you think everyone should know about? Now,
Oh,
you don't
wow.
really have to let everybody know if you don't want to, because I wouldn't, but you can take that one.
To be honest with you, hidden gem. Look, what is wrong with my camera? But anyway, hidden gem. I live in the southern part of the county. I live down in Accokeek, the southernmost point in Prince George's County. And there are a couple places, Accokeek and Fort Washington, the Fort Washington National Park. And if you don't know where you're going, you won't find them. So I don't mind sharing.
I know that's right.
But there are a couple areas along the Potomac River. Um, they're phenomenally peaceful. And when I have time and I'm just not, it's like I need to get away, but I can't get away. I can get in my car and drive from my house about 5, 10 minutes, and I'm
Yeah.
literally sitting on the water, and I can reconnect with nature in a way that revitalizes me like nothing else in this world.
Yeah, I definitely get it. I personally enjoy kayaking in Prince George's County. I met someone on Facebook, and she loved it, and I was like, "Take me," and that's how we met. And I love kayaking.
See, it's all about nature.
It
We're
is.
one.
It
You
is.
got to connect.
Yeah. This is your second time running for county executive, but this time there is no incumbent. How does this differ for you this time around? And do you believe the county is cliquish unless you're and you're an outcast unless you kiss the ring?
Heavy questions, my brother. Heavy questions. This time I'll say is different because you're right. There is no incumbent. And so there's not that attitude of we're obligated or we feel like we have to give somebody a second term. That was a big challenge in 2022 because I was running and you did too. Congratulations to you.
Thank
We
you.
ran against the incumbent. And there were
Absolutely.
people, I don't care how you feel about incumbents, there are still voters out there who think we deserve a second term. I elected you once, so I got to get you again. And so it's a challenge to overcome that hurdle.
Yeah, it absolutely
I'm,
is a challenge to overcome that hurdle.
yep. And I'm glad that one's not here this time. I'm still dealing with, name recognition is still
Mhm.
a big issue now.
Absolutely.
I'm still dealing with being the new kid on the block or the fresh
Mhm.
face. But I think the last 2 years have allowed me to establish myself a little bit more in the community. People have heard my name now. They know my voice now. They've learned a little bit more about me. So this time, I'm just kind of kicking dust off the old crusty wheels, if you will.
I hear that. So you've got an impressive resume, but running the county isn't like running a business or drafting regulations.
Right.
It's managing a massive, complex system of government. So tell me, what makes you the right person to lead a county of nearly a million residents with such diverse needs?
Right. You're absolutely right. The biggest thing is, I'll say this, and I don't talk about this part of my resume much or my experience. Another thing you learn in the military, I was an officer. And as an officer, you literally from day one, you're given a staff and you have to manage that staff. And so I've been groomed since I was about 23, 24 years old, okay, to lead a team of people to accomplish a mission. And I'm grateful that I have grown in that and progressed in that part of my career, such that by the time I became a federal regulator, my last job with the federal government, I was a director of a nationwide team of examiners, and I had my own budget to manage. Um, I had to order staff to get on a plane and go to a bank or credit union or a lender to do investigations, to do examinations, to do inspections. So I had significant amount of authority, and I was fairly young. I'm just 52. I was doing that in my 40s.
Right, right, right. Definitely, I
The,
get that.
yeah,
As even, airmen in the military, a lot of people don't understand um, the skill set that is instilled in military members because, as you were a young lieutenant, I was a young airman. And, we go through airman leadership school, and I was
yep,
barely, 21, and I was already managing three or four people at that time
absolutely,
already. So,
absolutely.
I definitely understand that. What do you think is the single most critical issue the county is facing?
Right now, like the state itself is budget.
Mhm.
It's budget. Um, Unfortunately, money makes the world turn these days. And the state is now running a deficit. Prince George's County has a significant deficit. And because of that, we're hamstrung in everything else we need to do to support our residents. So we've got to get a handle on the county's budget and address the deficit. And we've got to come up with creative solutions to reduce that and get back to a balanced budget. And not only that, we have to come up with new revenue streams because we're breaking homeowners' backs.
Right.
Matter of fact, today I just got out of my mailbox my new tax assessment.
Mhm.
My taxes are
Yeah,
going to go up,
yeah.
projected to go up through fiscal year 2027. But how much
Yeah.
can homeowners take?
Mhm.
So we've
And
got to come up with other ways to raise revenue to provide services for our citizens.
and what form of revenue would you attempt to raise?
Commercial tax base.
Mhm.
We have to build a commercial tax base. And I'll be more specific. In my administration, that commercial tax base will be focused around sports and entertainment
Okay.
because we can use sports and entertainment in Prince George's County to attract tourism.
Mhm.
The elephant in the room right now is the commanders. Are they going to Washington, D.C.? Are they going back to RFK? Well, if you elect me as county executive, I'm gonna fight like hell to keep them here. The
No,
lease
that's
does
right.
not end until 2027. We need them. And I will be the first to acknowledge and apologize to the commanders organization because the county has not given them the respect that they've garnered. We've not recognized them as one of our constituents and one of our citizens. I will change that because I need them to stay here so that we can build around and support them. And in doing that, we will improve our own economy and our own revenue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on that note, and because as you mentioned, well, lesser known candidates battle with name recognition or being tested or proven to be able to show how they have managed certain incidents. This special election is unique in the sense that the term is only 18 months.
Right.
And with the next county executive need to step in on day one to address immediate challenges like the budget crisis, as you mentioned, ongoing economic recovery, and potential navigating a tumultuous federal landscape, with the new administration. Do you believe there will
Yes.
be a learning curve for you in this role? And if so, can the county afford to wait while you get up to speed on the ins and outs of local governance?
For me personally, no, there's no learning curve. And there's no learning curve for me because I've lived in the DMV since December of 1999. Having served in the United States Air Force, my last assignment was at Andrews. Having worked in the federal government, I know every single federal agency in this area, and I still have contacts with every single one of them. Having worked in budget and finance and focused on banking regulation, I know about money. You hear me? I know the Federal Reserve System. I know where the money hides. I know where you can find it. I know that there are private foundations out there that have grants, offer grants to local jurisdictions. We've never applied for, fought for, even asked for that money. I know where to go get it. So for me personally, there's not going to be a learning curve. The one challenge I know I'm going to have, because I'm already hearing it from current staff members in our local government, they're going to leave because many of our directors, many of our senior employees in the county government, they're loyal to their former leader, and that's okay. That happens a lot in government. And so the challenge for me is going to be recruiting experienced, qualified, and skilled directors because I cannot run this government by myself. So that may be the challenge in an 18-month term, because I may end up having to ask the county council to affirm or confirm new directors in our government. But because of how our system works, if I win the primary in March, I got a 3-month head start to start that transition and recruit those people. So day one, we can hit the ground running.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. And as you mentioned, you're gonna select the best persons possible. So your administration will have to appoint key department directors and agency heads. What qualities or qualifications will you prioritize in your leadership team to ensure the county operates effectively to meet their goals?
Qualities that I'm looking for are leaders, qualified, skilled, competent leaders who are not afraid to implement creative and sometimes radical solutions to affect change and bring about success for our citizens. We have to do a new thing. I tell people, I live in Prince George's County. I'm a Prince Georgian and I'm tired of the insanity. And the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing, expecting a different result. I want new and different, and I'm going to demand new and different from any director on my team. And if you're not willing to do that, if I got to hold your hand and lead you through that, we're going to have problems because the county's too big. I don't have time to hold everybody's hand. And so that's why I harp on the need for skilled, experienced, qualified directors who are willing to take the reins and use their expertise to get it done.
And in your search for that, are you looking within the county, or you're going to spread your wings and open up to anyone
Always start
in
at home.
jurisdiction? Hmm.
Always start at home. Nobody takes care of home better than home.
I know that's
And let me
right.
tell you something. Hiding in the shadows of Prince George's County, we have a lot of people who can do it.
Hmm.
You asked earlier, and I didn't answer the question whether we were cliquish.
Hmm.
That's a touchy subject, Sherman.
Hmm.
I didn't, and I almost didn't answer the question, and I'm going to answer it. We're human. We associate with people who are most like us. We assimilate with those who are most like us. So all
And to our
humans are
detriment,
cliquish.
you know, and at
Yes,
some point we have to realize that that does us more harm at times than
then
good.
good. Absolutely. And so anybody who knows me well will tell you Tonya is not cliquish.
Mhm.
I will go out there and recruit the person that you tell me I'm not going to like. I was a kid in school who took the teacher that my classmates said were the worst teachers in the world, and they turned out to be the best teachers for me. So I'm going to start at home recruiting those people who've not had the opportunity to serve because I see something in them that wasn't seen before. And there's a possibility, you mentioned the new federal administration, we may have some people at home who may need jobs.
Mhm.
So, yes, we want to recruit, reclaim, and bring that experience back to Prince George's County and put it to work.
Yes, yes. And on several occasions, you stated you execute, not legislate. Yet much of your
Yes.
described experience writing policy, drafting regulation sounds more
Mhm.
like legislative work than direct implementation. Can you clarify your past roles and how they align that of an executive versus a legislative governance?
Absolutely. You, I'm hiring you. I need your resume because you are a very astute young man. The unique thing about serving in the executive branch of the federal government, because all of my experience, whether military or banking regulator, was in the executive branch. And the unique thing about the federal government is the executive branch has the authority to write administrative rules, policies, or regulations. So, yes, it is like a semi legislative type of position. And when you're a lawyer, you're the writer. So, I did
Mhm.
a lot of that in the federal government.
Yeah, but the
On
county
top of
executive
that,
seat does policy as well.
absolutely, absolutely. So that transitions right over into local
Mhm.
government. Man, you okay, I'm thinking right now exactly where I'm gonna put you. So when I call you, don't run. But anyway, I digress. So,
Mhm.
but the other thing about the executive branch is all of the policies and procedures that we wrote, we then had to implement them. These are the rules. Now we got to get them done. In the military, and you know this being an airman yourself,
Mhm. Cool.
we plan, and then we
Absolutely.
execute.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to think
That's
on the
what I've been
strategic
doing
level
my
and the
entire
tactical
career.
level.
Exactly, exactly. And so writing policies and regulations in the executive branch literally is the plan. And when it's time to get it done, you get it done.
Mhm.
And lots of times that means you're handing it off to somebody to do or fulfill the instructions that you've
Yeah.
written. So that's what I'll be doing as a county executive.
Delegate, as we
That's it.
say.
That's it.
Mrs. Sweat, the senior tax credit has been a significant topic of discussion in Prince George's County, particularly
Yes.
as many seniors struggle with the rising cost of living and property taxes. As you said, you know, a few moments ago, you got your bill. I ain't looking at mine. How would your administration approach the senior tax credit? Would you expand, modify, or maintain the program as it currently exists, or would you ensure it is both accessible, sustainable for the county budget?
That's a challenging question on a couple of fronts. I appreciate and support the senior tax credit. We need it because the cost of living in this area is extremely high. Everybody acknowledges that. But there are a couple of challenges, both in state law and in county ordinance, that makes implementing the senior tax credit difficult. And we still have not gotten over those hurdles, and we got to figure them out. One of the challenges is the state law and the way state law is written. There's a limit on the amount of tax credits any homeowner can get. We already have the homestead tax credit, which is 20%. And then volunteer firefighters and public servants get tax credits, and the other groups get tax credits. So now we're adding another tax credit on top of that, and there's a cap. There's a cap. The senior tax credit itself was going to take some homeowners over that cap, which is why the state came back and said you can't do it. Can't do it. So now we're trying to amend that ordinance to make the adjustment for our seniors, and they're still not getting the full benefit of the intent of the law. Another issue we got to deal with or understand is TRIM, taxpayer relief in Maryland. Prince George's County is the only county that has that as a part of our tax ordinance and our charter. Voters put it there. Voters have to take it away. And until voters repeal it, we're stuck with it. So we've got to figure out how we're going to work within TRIM and within the state laws, tax laws, to make that elderly tax credit work. And trust me, that's going to be one of the first things General Counsel in the Office of Law is going to get from me. Figure out how we fix this so we can make that recommendation to the county council, because it's good for our citizens. We just got to figure out how to make it work.
And you've noted your ability to beat the rules all day, every day. How do you reconcile this approach with maintaining transparency and building consensus in a public-facing role?
Yes. Yeah, I tell people all the time, I will beat you with the rules all day, because that's what I was trained to do. I play by the rules. And so in the government, another benefit to my federal experience, in federal government, we have the Sunshine Act. Everything is in the sunshine. That's what we call it. Everything is out for the public to see. In the state of Maryland, we have the Open Meetings Act, which is a little bit different. And it doesn't guarantee the same type of transparency that the federal government guarantees. I'll tell anybody, I go back to my roots. We are a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. Everything in my administration will be transparent. So I'm going to go far beyond what the Open Meetings Act requires in the state of Maryland. We're going to post it on the internet. If you want email, sign up. We'll email it to you. But everything done in my administration, you'll be able to go back to the county internet and find it easily. I'm not hiding anything, because I can't be held accountable for what I do if you don't know what I'm doing.
Absolutely. In our county, everybody has, really big plans, what they want to do and how they're going to do it. But the county executive role is ultimately about governance.
Right.
It's about managing agencies, setting priorities, and building coalitions. Yep. What's your approach to governing, and how will you ensure you're focusing on the right things in this job? And with that mindset of building a Prince George's County for the future.
Right. And this is where, when you talk about governing, this is where I distinguish myself from legislators. Legislators write the law. They pass the law. Yes, as the county executive, I know I got veto power. And we've only used that in Prince George's County one time now of record. I intend to, and I will, this is an absolute promise, work very closely with the county council to ensure that we enact ordinances in the county that work best for the county and for its people. My role in governance is to execute what the county council says it wants. I recognize as a county executive, I can make recommendations, and those recommendations will come from implementation. The elderly tax credit. It ain't working. We can't make it work. So we need to recommend certain adjustments in that law so that it does work. The stuff that, in my mind, the county executive does really is low-hanging fruit. The county council has the hard job, because they got to pass the rules that we got to live by.
Right.
It's not the county executive. My job is easy. I just make recommendations. They say yes or no, and then I come back and say, well, I'm gonna trump that yes, or agree with that yes. I'm gonna trump that no, but they still can overrule my no. So I'm just literally executing the plan that they put together. But I understand that the two branches of government have to work hand in hand, because we're all working for the best interest of the people.
Absolutely. And that was really a great segue into my next question, because I wanted to ask, the county executive role involves balancing executive duties with political realities, including dealing with the county council, state officials, and other stakeholders, including developers. How do you plan to navigate these relationships while staying focused on your agenda?
Yes, I will work with and can work with anybody. I keep my personal business separate from my professional business. I've never built friendships solely on professional relationships. That's dangerous. And so anybody working with me, when I have on the hat of county executive will have to understand this is business, and my business is to advocate for and do what's in the best interest of the people of Prince George's County. Full stop. I will consider special interests. That is important. They play a role in our community. I cannot cater to special interests because I will do the people a major disservice. If you know me as a friend, and when we're acting as a friend, I don't talk business. We can't because you blur the lines. And so I'm going to be your different type of elected official in Prince George's County. I know how to turn it on and turn it off. I know how to draw boundaries, and we're going to keep those boundaries in place because I have to in order to remain an effective and an objective leader for the people.
Yeah. And I love that because, and that's another quality trait I believe we learned in the military,
Yes.
having to manage and compartmentalize and how to work with people who you absolutely cannot stand. Because I know for sure, hey, I'm gonna be real, and that's just, you just do what you got to do, because the mission is the most important thing of
Mm-hmm.
all. And,
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, Prince George's County needs someone who is mission focused, and
Yes.
on the seat in this county, rather focusing on whatever their next move is.
Right.
Strategic leadership is about shaping a vision. Tactical leadership is about delivering results.
Mm-hmm.
What major challenge you tackle strategically, and one that you'd handle tactically if elected county executive?
One of the things I know we'll have to handle strategically is our development. We have Prince George's County Plan 2035 that is currently being implemented.
Mhm,
Um, Strategically, I don't think it's a good plan.
mhm,
I don't think it was well thought out because in the tactical implementation of it, guess what? We don't have enough classroom seats for all of the babies we're bringing into the county. The schools that we have are falling apart, and we don't have the money to renovate and upgrade them. We don't have the funds to widen roads where they need to be widened because we're bringing more houses and more cars. We're talking about walkable spaces and walkable communities, but in that, we're not providing enough grocery stores and shopping facilities for those walking communities. And so the vision is nice. The tactical implementation ain't going so well. So one of the challenges we have to deal with is that 2035 plan. We got to address it.
right.
The other
And
problem
and
with 2030,
so really, really quick on that, I want to ask, um, is it the plan or is it the execution of it? Because the plan, details some of the many things that you just mentioned, but how people have executed over the years may not be in line with actually what the plan is, and we've seen that on the
right?
county council as well. So, what do you have to say about that?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And you're right that the plan is a part of the problem as well as the execution. And I say the plan is a problem is a part of the problem because it started with I think it was 2020, and we've modified it a couple times. We went from 2020 to 2025 to 2035, and part of it's because we've not accomplished the goal that was laid out in those three versions, if you will, of the plan. So part of it is the plan. I think the initial thought process and planning behind it wasn't well developed. And you know the saying, garbage in, garbage out. So now the implementation is also broken because we should have evaluated our roads. We should have evaluated our schools. We should have understood what it was going to take to build new housing developments in rural areas we'd never built before. Um, we haven't taken into consideration effectively the environmental impact, and now it's reverberating on us. So all of that now is causing problems. So we gotta retreat and regroup, in my mind, to
I
use
know that's
military
right.
terms.
And I want to ask, you've committed the you've committed to leading the charge to fix Prince George's, but leadership often means making unpopular decisions. If faced with a choice between increasing revenue through taxes or cutting programs, where would your priorities lie?
Well, you again hit the nail on the head, my brother. Being a leader is never popular. That's why they say it's lonely at the top. You have to make hard decisions, and you will never make everybody happy. It's just not possible.
Mhm.
And so when you talk about the choice between cuts and taxes, there's going to have to be a little bit of both. Um, and I say that because there's already a plan in place to start increasing the taxes. I mean, I just talked about the fact we just got our new tax assessments projected out to 2027. Um, to come in at this point and put a stop to it or a block to it could be detrimental. So that's not something I can do immediately and feel comfortable about. I got to do some evaluating. And so we're going to experience the continued tax increases until I can get a full handle on what's happening with our budget and our spending. And oh, by the way, I only got 18 months to do it
Yeah,
because
but
this ain't a
really,
4-year term.
so are you talking about the assessed value and the assessed
Mhm.
value going up? Because the
Yes,
formula isn't changing, so we're not increasing the taxes in that manner.
correct. We got to look at the assessed value and how we calculate the assessed value. Trim does not allow us to change the formula.
Mhm,
But when you get that statement and the value of your house keeps going up, that is natural, yes. But we need to look at how we're calculating the assessed value on homes,
mhm,
because if you know how property taxes are calculated, and I kind of understand that, that's the number you play with when you want to increase the taxes without saying I increased your taxes,
mhm,
because it's a multiplication formula. 20% of $100 is less than 20% of $150, if you get what I'm saying.
mhm,
Okay. So we got to look at that. We're doing it, can't stop it right away. We got to deal with it because we still got bills to pay. And yes, I'm going to have to make cuts. I'm going to have to look at staff. That's the one thing the county exec has exclusive control over under the county charter.
mhm.
I'm gonna have to look at the organizational structure of the executive branch, and I got to reorganize. And let me tell you, if it's top heavy, I always say top heavy, we gotta go. I need my foot soldiers because those are where the experts lie.
Yeah, but you're going
It's
to have
at
to
the
cut
top.
more than just personnel in order to
Oh
close,
yeah.
that gap. So, we
Oh,
definitely have to
absolutely.
look at how things go. And you said you won't tell residents we don't have the money in the budget. But if elected, you will inherit a budget with limitations and pre-existing commitments. How will
Mhm.
you approach tough decisions when there is simply not enough money to fund, the things that you want to accomplish?
Couple things we do. Um, I don't like saying there's not money in the budget because where there's a will, there's a way.
Mom used to say that too. How to feel about that?
So first of all, for new programs, one of the things I believe in government is you create a new program. There's got to be an old program you don't need anymore, so it's got to go. So you take the funding from your old program and you appropriate it to your new program. Sometimes you can cover the bill. In our case, we know we're gonna be short about $180 million. I think it's projection for this year. So there may not be money to do that. So that's where grants come into play. And grants come from different places. They're government grants, they're also private grants. We have to start applying for those. And I can tell you, looking at what I've seen, we're not good at applying for those grants that are offered constantly. And so I'm going to go out there and get the new money that currently exists as we attempt to build that commercial tax base to bring in new revenue.
Okay. And as you just mentioned, and you stated before, you'll build a cabinet of experts to secure federal grants. Okay, but here's the problem with that. The county already gets federal grants. The issue isn't about getting the money, it's about spending it effectively. What makes you think your administration will be any different? Where's the plan to make sure that the money gets used where it's needed the most?
Uh, I was trained under this thing called the Anti-Deficiency Act. That does not exist in Maryland. Okay, that's a federal thing. Under federal law, Federal funds have a purpose, a time, and an amount. PTA, and you don't violate those. When you apply for federal grants, even though you're not a federal entity, PTA still applies. I'm going to stick to that, and I'm going to apply that to Prince George's County spending, even though I know we have not done that in the past. So if the grant comes in and the grant is for schools, the money will go to the schools. I'm not going to take monies intended for our school system and use it for our roads. That's not how I was trained in government operations and government financing.
Okay. And one of the executive's role is to shape the long-term vision of the county. What do you see as the top 3 priorities for Prince George's over the next 18 months? Not, excluding the budget, because that's a given.
Yes.
And how will your administration set the groundwork for achieving them?
I'm going to lay it to you plain. Top 3. Budget is critical. And we got to tackle that. And my intent on tackling that, and we can do this in 18 months because we have to, is to build a sports and entertainment tax base. And why do I know I ain't got but 18 months to do it? My lease expires in 2027. So you damn real. Day one, I'm going to see the Commanders. I have to get to Mr. Harrison. I got to fight to keep them here. Now, the implementation of that is going to take a little bit longer, but if I can get the commitment in that first 18 months, we got something to work on towards the future.
Yeah.
Sports and entertainment built around that Commanders campus. Yes, that's one. The second thing is our schools. The governor just put a pause on the blueprint, and I'm heartbroken about that. I don't want to put a pause on Prince George's County's responsibility under the blueprint. So I got to look at our budget, and I'm going to work very closely with the superintendent and the school board. Hopefully they will look at their budget to see if there's a way we can continue to implement the blueprint, even though the state says we don't have to. We got home rule here. We can do what we need to do to educate our children. So that's the second priority. And my hope is in working with the school system, building our commercial tax base, we'll have that money to put into our school system to keep growing under that blueprint. And then the third thing is to establish more stability and transparency in our government.
Thank you for joining CAG Chat. That is our thing, accountability and governance. So
yes. So those are my top 3 priorities. Day one. That's what I'm going to hit the road doing day one.
Okay. And this is a touchy subject because you've testified, you've advocated, and you cry for change. Yet you say you lost hope and even consider leaving. And that's powerful. But here's the question. If you say you struggle to make change as an advocate, what makes you think you would succeed as the county executive when you are faced even more challenges, resistance, and setbacks? And that includes from constituents too.
Different position, different authority. And you also have a seat at a different table. As a voter, as a constituent, as an advocate, I can yell to the top of my lungs all day long. The one thing that frustrated the hell out of me is every time I go see somebody in Annapolis, they say, well, how many people agree with you? What difference does it make? I'm one vote. That's the difference. As your county executive, I'm not one vote anymore. I'm 947,430 people. And out of those 947,430 people, I am about 500,000 votes. I got a bully pulpit in Prince George's County. And so if I say they ain't working with me and the voters like me, guess what happens? You see how that power shifts when you're in an elected position. And unfortunately, there's some of our elected officials who understand that and some of them who don't. Well, I understand that. And I will use it to get what Prince George's County needs to make us better and to make us stronger.
Yeah. And speaking of something that the county needs, or, to make us stronger, One of the an additional duties the executive will have is to prioritize funding and programs that reflect the county's greatest needs. Do you see your administration focusing more on expanding affordable housing, improving public transportation, or addressing public health disparities? And how will you measure how will you measure the outcomes for your choosing priority?
Do you know that's the stuff that keeps me awake at night, gentlemen? And then
I know it. Me too.
those are things that make me go, why did I my name on the ballot again? Because all of those are pressing priorities. But you can't work on every priority at the same time. There's just one of me, limited resources. The beauty of it is, though, I will have a team, a government of people, and each agency will have its own respective priority to work on. The Board of Education is to focus on education. That's their priority. My job is to help them get it done. I understand as a county executive, I hired a superintendent. That's the power of the law. So I'm not going to leave that superintendent, even though the superintendent is already in place. I'm not going to leave him out there by himself. I'm going to work with him to help him get his job done. But that's his focus, and I'm going to let him do what he was hired to do. Healthcare, we got to deal with that as well. But we have a director of health on the team. Director of health, that's your priority. I need you to work it. That means we need to focus on helping the University of Maryland hospital system get us qualified, skilled, educated doctors in that building so we can reduce the wait times in that emergency room. We got to deal with the stresses that our nurses are dealing with to relieve those so we can keep quality medical care in this county. We also need to look at expanding that. I want to work with Adventist Healthcare because I know they want to build a trauma center out here on 210. I want to know why it stalled. Let's get it done. Public safety. I'll have a deputy chief administrative officer for public safety. That's your job. That's your priority. Get it done. Make sure our police department is up to par. We got to get recruiting back on track. Work with our fire department. Make sure we're covered for emergencies. So all of these priorities are going to get hit. How does it get hit? It gets hit with every directorate under my umbrella.
Okay, and you've emphasized the need for a strong and qualified CEO for the public school system. What specific qualifications or experience would you prioritize and select the next CEO?
And the next, but we now call him the superintendent. I like that term.
Okay, superintendent,
I
right?
like that term better. Because our school system is not a corporation. We can't run it that way. It doesn't raise money for itself. And so our superintendent has to, one, have an education background and has to understand what it takes to educate children. And I'm going to go a step further and say our superintendent needs to understand what it takes to educate minority children. Almost 50% of our public school population right now is Hispanic. I would love to have a bilingual superintendent. That would be a positive. I also need a superintendent who has strong administrative, budgetary, and managerial skills. Gotta have it. I love teachers. I think teachers are great. Teachers are grown and progressed to be administrators. So I need a top-notch administrator to handle PGCPS because it is just as large as the county. We have 220 schools. We're building new schools. And now we've taken a big chunk of our school system budget to build schools. I need somebody who's strategic, tactical, creative, and almost damn near radical to make sure we get it done efficiently and effectively.
Thank you. And you stated fixing the P3 contract for school construction, that you wanted to fix that, but isn't it a little too late for that? The deal is done
No,
and
sir.
taxpayers are stuck with it. What's your plan
No,
to ensure that we're not throwing good money after bad?
I can't let my cat out the bag just yet, but it's never too late. That is a contract, and I have studied that document a couple of times now. I see vulnerabilities. There are violations of the law, and a contract that violates the law is voidable.
Yeah,
We're gonna
and
have to
especially,
we're gonna have to deal with this.
how will you deal with that in your administration? Because there are several departments, according to audits, that have contractual issues and procurement issues and stuff like that. What is it that you're going to do? Because I mean, you said you're going to delegate those responsibilities to tell, you know, your deputy chiefs to get it done, but how will you ensure that? Because the bulk starts with you.
Absolutely. Buck stops with me. So first and foremost, I'm a skilled, trained attorney. So I got a keen eye for things. Do I micromanage? No, I'm not going to micromanage. I don't have time. But I will be keeping a very keen and close eye on everything that's going on, especially those areas where I have major concerns about the legality of what's happening in this county. Number two, I need a strong office of law because, yes, we may be legally challenged on some of the things that I have picked up on in some of our contracts and procurement projects. Because, yes, I see some things that don't comport with state law. I got questions. And so if we can't renegotiate these terms, there may be litigation. And it's expensive to hire outside counsel. And again, now we're talking about greater expenditures of money we don't have. So I need a team internally who are strong enough to handle it.
And you've mentioned several ambitious goals, especially with education. But the county executive authority is limited in certain areas, like education and policing. Can you tell us how you plan to work within those limits while still making
Yes.
good on those promises?
And when it comes to education, my biggest role as the county executive is advocacy.
Mhm.
Ultimately, it's the Board of Education's responsibility under the law to oversee and manage our education system. I acknowledge that. I also understand that our, Board of Education members are elected from the public, and they may not have the wealth of knowledge and experience that I bring to the table. I'm willing to share that and advocate with them, stand with them, hold their hands, testify, do what needs to be done. Help write grants, all of that, because it's a part of our community that we need it to make the community work, period. And so whatever resources that I have as the county executive, I'm willing to share with the Board of Education to make sure our children get the best. None of this ain't my responsibility talk. It's all my responsibility.
Mhm.
Policing, same thing. I understand we got a sheriff's department that is run by a constitutional officer in the name of the sheriff. We also have a county police department, and the police chief is responsible to the county executive. Well, we're gonna have to sit down and have a discussion about how we work together as a team to ensure a safe community for all Prince Georgians. Again, like you said, is building alliances, partnerships, and collaborations to work toward a common goal.
Okay. And speaking of building alliances, at one point let's talk about the state because at one point you said that Maryland doesn't always help Prince George's County.
Nope.
What's your plan to work with a state government that might not always see eye to eye with your vision for the county? And if they say no, how will you ensure that you know you get your vision implemented?
I am not afraid to go to Annapolis. Got 90 days to advocate for, before, on behalf of. And I'm willing to do that as much as I need to do that and send representatives from the county to do it on our behalf. And again, it's not about hiring lobbyists to do it. People do that all the time, but you're spending money we don't have to spend. We should have experts in our county government who can speak on behalf of our county's needs. And if they can't, that's a problem for me. Why are you in the job? Why are we paying you six figures and you can't go as a director and testify in Annapolis about what Prince George's County needs? That's a no-no under my administration. The first people to speak on behalf of Prince George's County is those of us who've been selected, hired, affirmed to work in our government. We know best. We know best. So yes, I expect members of my administration to go to Annapolis and advocate for what we need. We have not done that successfully in Prince George's County. How do I know? Because when I was on the state PTA board, I walked through the halls. And when they say, you from Prince George's County? Why is that a shocker? Y'all act like Prince George's County didn't come here. What are you talking about? Well, we're going to be there. We're going to go and beg and plead and borrow and fight for every resource that's been promised to us under federal law and state law.
Yeah, yeah. And the county executive's role with creating partnerships, in the business community, um, with community organizations and other government agencies and entities. Would your administration prioritize attracting major corporations to boost the local economy, supporting small businesses, or fostering public-private partnerships for infrastructure development?
All of the above.
Mhm.
Yes, I am looking to recruit new industries and trades into Prince George's County. The state has a phenomenal program that will allow businesses to get credits
Mhm.
for having apprenticeships. Let's recruit some of those businesses that we know can offer apprenticeship opportunities for our students right here to Prince George's County. And this is the thing. I know you can't go to Las Vegas to a trade show to get them to come here. So with our Economic Development Corporation, I'm going to encourage them to go visit these headquarters to say, he needs you to come see us. One-on-one
That
meetings.
one-on-one FaceTime. Hmm.
That's it. Because that's how you get them to come to your community. It's not by going to a trade show. They don't respond to that. Um, I'm also going to work with the industries that are already here to encourage them to expand and to grow and offer more opportunities for our youth who need jobs. And yes, I want them to partner with our small businesses to help them expand and grow, and not just in word, but also in deed.
Yeah. And how do you, and speaking of attracting business, how do you feel about balancing the community needs with the jobs that they want in the areas that they want? Because as we've seen what happened in Westphalia, they didn't want, Amazon to come to their location. So, exactly how will you attract businesses, but also let the community know that this is for our benefit?
You know, Westphalia could have been a very simple success. All the county had to do was ask Amazon to build a grocery store. I listened to all that fighting and all those arguments. And the biggest thing that community wanted was a grocery store. That came out of everybody's freaking mouth. Y'all promised us a grocery store.
Yeah, I mean that area is
It's a food desert.
it's
It's a
over
food
there,
desert.
and there is nothing on that stretch. So I mean, I do understand that, and they were promised
It's
that,
called
you know.
compromise.
Mhm.
Compromise. All we had to do as a county is ask Amazon to build Amazon Fresh, bring us a Whole Foods because they own Whole Foods now, build us a grocery store. And alongside your grocery store, we'll let you have your warehouse and distribution center. Now, does that mean you got to build a bigger parking lot? Yep, you got to build a parking lot for cars. Yep, you're gonna have to build a little road, some good roads in there for people to get in and out. You got big trucks. Yeah, but I think if the county had said, if we bring you a grocery store, would that make you happy? It would have, I think it would have calmed the savage beast. It's called listening and then broker a compromise.
Mhm.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
We lost a phenomenal opportunity there. Those are the types of opportunities I
Well,
do not
let's not
intend to.
oversimplify because I mean most people did want a grocery store, but then there were others who were complaining about traffic and noise, and other things like that as well.
There's
So.
way and again that you addressed all of that.
Mhm.
There you build sound walls. 210. When they started expanding 210, the Kirby Hill Road interchange, what did they do? They built a sound barrier. It ain't pretty, but it took away the noise of the traffic. So we have to learn to compromise in the community. I'm going to give you a little bit of what you want so that we can get what we need because we lost jobs, we lost economic growth because that distribution center is not there. It's not there.
Mhm. Mhm. And we're going to get ready to close out, but I do want Prince George's County to understand your vision. What is your long-term vision for the county, and how will you measure your success as county executive?
Long-term vision is a thriving, growing, bustling Prince George's County. And I don't think we have to destroy communities to make that happen. We can revitalize Prince George's County, but we're going to have to roll back some limitations and restrictions that we placed on ourselves that have hurt us. It's hurt us. Nobody wants to come and visit and tour and and recreationally spend time in Prince George's County unless you live here. We have to change that. We have to make our community more inviting for others to come in because it's not us who's got to maintain our economy. Our economy will grow if we invite others in and let them spend their money with us. Yes, sir. So we have to make the community more inviting for others to come and visit, not just because I got family who live there, so I'm going for the Christmas holidays. That's not enough. Because when others come and invest in your community, it opens the doors so our youth can have jobs and flourish. They don't have to carjack because now they got a job that's going to help them pay the bills. They don't have to steal to get what they need because I don't believe anybody steals for fun. They do it to fill a need. So to fill a need, we've got to partner with the outside world.
Yeah.
And if we do it right now, in 5 years, 10 years, I think Prince George's County will look differently. We cannot do it on our own anymore.
Undoubtedly. And with that in mind, I want you to go ahead and give us a closing statement. We're gonna. I truly appreciate you for coming in. Do you have any last remarks for the viewers today?
I am a proud Prince Georgian. Am I always proud of what we do? No. Am I always proud of what we get? No. There is good here. There are good people here, and I'm one of them. I'm just like you. I'm just like the elders in the community. All I want is a good life, a comfortable home. I tell everybody this is not about Tonya anymore. I've had my successes and I'm good. This is about helping our community, Prince George's County, be what we hold it out to be, a wonderful place to live, to grow, to raise a family, to retire. So if Prince George's County will have me, all I want to do is give to you the experience, the skills that I've learned from the United States Air Force, from the federal government, from my time as a PTA leader, from my time as a mom. I'm going to give them to you to make Prince George's County the gorgeous community we know it can be. And when my time is done, I'm going to retire. I'm going to ride off into the sunset with my husband, let the rest of my hair turn gray, and say, y'all, we done good. Life is, I'm good with it.
Y'all got it.
Yep, y'all got it. I ain't trying to hold on to this forever because all I want to do is set up the next generation to take it and carry it even further. So I am you, Prince George's County. I see myself in every single one of us. And if you see just a little bit of you and me, we put that together, magic happens.
Awesome.
Magic happens.
Awesome. And that wraps up our conversation with Tonya Sweat. As Prince George's County gears up for this crucial election, it is vital to stay informed and engaged. Thank you for tuning in to CAG Chat. Stay with us for more interviews with the candidates shaping the future of our community. Thank you so much, Tonya.
Thank you.
All right, what an amazing interview. It was great to have a conversation with Tonya, with Tonya Sweat. And I know that my co-host had some views and some thoughts they wanted to share with you all. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to the team.
Who wants to go first?
I thought it was a very informative interview. It was good. She had very detailed responses. They seemed targeted and focused on the questions. She may be a little disappointed that the law has taken away the authority to appoint the superintendent, but other than that, I thought it was, very detailed. I think it gave the people the information that they needed so that they can really start, building their checklist for their candidates. Donna, you're on mute.
I knew it was coming. I was preparing myself so y'all can say that to me again. I thought it was an informative interview. Love to have heard a little more clarity on her statement about the senior tax credit and how that, what was specifically things that could be done to either clarify it or, that they're going to get it or not get it. I would like to have heard a little more of that. And the other, she made a statement, I didn't quote it verbatim, but about the lack of experience of some of the board members. True. But as county executive, my thought was, how does she said something about, we're going to have to correct that thing, but I'm wondering how that will work. Is she saying that, trying to implement the requirement for certain training or to be at a, yes, I was wondering about that. So that was,
I think, Donna, what she was saying was because she knows that they're inexperienced, she would work with them because she could bring in experience. That's what I.
Is she saying herself personally, or she would have a
No, she would just share she would just share what knowledge that she had to help the board. But I don't think it's a direct thing that she's saying that she would have control over. And one other thing about the senior tax, and she did say there's the hurdle of legislation at the state level that has to be done.
Right.
So that's going to take some lobbying.
Yeah, more than that. Oh, that I thought were still may need.
Donna, you're trying.
How her being able to pour herself into someone who should really have certain experiences or have to go through some kind of training program. So that's all.
Derek?
I think it is quite refreshing to see new faces at times. I think in this county, we, for at least the 10 to 20 years that I've gotten more involved in my knowledge about politics in this county, we continue to see the same faces go from one seat of authority to another seat of authority. Promises made during campaigns for our school system and for the improvement of our government. And frankly, what I've seen and what is currently existing with the budget in this county are these same individuals making promises about how they're going to improve and make the government better and the school system better. And we end up 10, 15 years down the road with a $2-3 billion deficit to the budget. So to hear, a candidate speak about they will lobby in Annapolis, they would be steadfast about the things that the county needs, not what they need, is refreshing, but it still has to come to fruition. It still has to be proven once that candidate, whether it's Tonya Sweat, Jolene Ivey, whoever is in there, whatever they say they're going to do, we have to be steadfast as well in holding them accountable.
Exactly.
And we have to stop allowing the people who are our leaders to continue to take us deeper down a rabbit hole financially, because it's going to become a point in time where
Did we lose Derek?
Yeah, he accidentally hopped off. But go ahead, Levon. You can. Oh, he's back.
I got bumped off, y'all. I'm sorry. So if someone else wants to go, you guys want me to continue.
You can wrap up. You can wrap up your
Okay,
thoughts.
and just to wrap up, I just would like everybody, inclusive of myself, to educate ourselves more, not just on county executive races in special elections, but on all elections that we are vested in voting in, and learn who our candidates are, because we got to stop voting by just name recognition of what somebody else says or who somebody else says they're going to vote for. Do your own research. That's my 2 cents.
All right, I'll go last. Couple of things. I just want everybody to know that the questions are not provided to the candidates prior to the interview. So as you're watching these, I would also encourage you to not just hear what they say, but how they are able to respond. When you're finished listening to a question, whether you know the topic or not, do you feel like you learned something, or do you need more clarity, as Donna said? So we're providing this so that you all will know what to listen for when you get into the forums or so-called debates. You know, we don't debate in Prince George's County, so I don't call them debates. They're just Q&A sessions. So that's my team comment, because Sherman is blowing these interviews out of the water. Tonya and I had the chance to listen to Tonya Sweat and Jolene Ivey's interview a few days ago, and I must have walked away because I missed a portion of Tanya's responses. And so the notes that I have a lot of notes, but we're supposed to say 2 things. So
I'm not going, so go ahead.
I'm sorry that,
I'm not going, so go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So she said
2 extra minutes now.
Right.
she had a lot to say. My overall critique of her is that she responded in such a strong way to every question, right? Whether she was clear or not, she took a question and she addressed the challenge and then gave her recommendation, and she even made some critiques along the way. And so many people are usually afraid to say something because, like she said, of the clicks. And having had the opportunity to get to know Tonya over the last couple of years, you know, she's a straight shooter. Like it, don't like it, agree, don't agree. She's going to tell you how she interprets the situation. And that's all you can ask from somebody. It ain't a rubber stamp answer. It's not a scripted answer, right? It's not a safe answer, because 18 months is not a lot of time. And what you all have to remember is 2026 is 2 years away. By the time they get elected, it's going to be time to campaign. And we already see how people are campaigning from the seats they already have. And so,
just, I don't want to, well, I do want to interrupt you for a brief moment. I hope you remember your thoughts. People, remember, elections have terms, not just term limits. So not everybody's guaranteed to be reelected. That's just something that we kind of traditionally do. Just go ahead and say, oh, we'll give them another try, but, you know, let's try something different. Go ahead.
Right. And I like that she addressed that. So those people out here talking about 10 years, y'all need to stop manipulating and educate the people. Okay. All right. My 2 points. I don't even know where to start. I think we need a whole show to talk about Plan 2035 because that is a multi-layered, complex
It's coming. I have an
matter. So we're
appointment
going to do
coming.
that. May not happen before the election. She talked about grants and funding, and what I will say is that's probably my critique, my questionable thing that she said. The problem is, and unless something's changed since I last checked, the problem with funding is that there's no intercommunication on who's applying for what from agency to agency, from federal grants down to the county executives grant, down to the council members grants. There's no cohesion of conversation. And so that requires staffing and money. You got to find the grant opportunities, you got to write the grants, and then you have to monitor the grants once you get the money. And we just, as far as I know, we just don't have the staff. So it's a great idea. It's not.
You know what? It's not just a problem here in the county. Apparently, it's an issue at the state as well, because I was watching a hearing today and they were talking about how a lot of the programs for restorative practices across the state, there's no metrics and there's no way, to kind of validate, the funding that's going out. So I hope whomever, is in charge or the powers to be, they start getting a grasp on those funding, because that's a huge portion of our budget that goes out as well.
Right. And we will be providing, now that I'm back in the groove, I'm going to return to my nonprofit research project. And now also it's more timely because we do have a change in administration, and we would like to be able to do an analysis of the also Brooks administration along with the previous one. So I'm committed to getting back on track with that. I had the energy to do it now, y'all. Okay, so
let me just comment one time on that grant situation before you move forward. One thing, I hear what you're saying, but one thing that I do like that Mrs. Sweat said about the grants, and because I've experienced this working in the state government as well, is when you do write the grants and you do get awarded the money, that's where in this county, in some cases, that money mysteriously gets lost or is not used in the manner in which it's supposed to be used. And one thing I do like what she said is that when that grant is acquired, that she would be paying attention to that grant, who's over that grant up under her supervision, and that grant will be allocated towards what that grant was acquired for and not moved to be used in other areas. And I think that is very important. And I somewhat experienced that working in transportation with Prince George's County Schools. We did have a couple of grants that we accrued during my time prior to become acting director, and I don't really know. I have a sneaky suspicion that money was not used for what it was accrued for. So
we'll definitely have a conversation about grants pretty soon, but we definitely want to get to our next interview as well. So, Lavon, if you can close out, and then we'll take the next one.
My overriding, or my positive was when she talked about having more transparent governance and accountability. And the thing that I liked most about her answer is that she quickly identified recruiting opportunities because of the cliquishness that she may face with not having the same people who are there now to be there for her. And I thought that the way she answered that was about federal workers was just phenomenal. So that's it until another time.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get ready to play the video with Councilwoman Jolene Ivey, and go ahead and get us going. Today, we're joined by a trailblazer in Prince George's County politics, Councilwoman Jolene Ivey. She has decades of public service under her belt, through her current role as an at-large member of the County Council and former state delegate. As the Councilwoman sets her sights on the current of the county executive seat, we're diving into her vision for the county, her record, and her priorities that will shape her leadership. But before we get into the heavy stuff, let's get to know a little more about the person behind the politics. Councilwoman Ivey, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Sherman. I appreciate it.
Yes, awesome, awesome. So you've worked on the Jesse Jackson presidential campaign, which must have been an experience in itself. Can you share a moment from that time that shaped you and how you view politics today?
Well, I think I was just so excited when I heard he was running. I ran down to his office in DC and just signed up to volunteer. And I'm not going to present this as if I were a big integral part of his campaign, unless getting him hot chocolate on a Saturday in the middle of DC when it was a wasteland back there. Do you know how hard it was to find a place open to get him some hot chocolate?
I could imagine.
Very proud of myself. But yeah, I was answering the phones. I'd see him in the office. He was always very kind.
Well, I can say this as a former candidate, and you as a candidate, someone that gets you hot chocolate in any condition, and especially when it's freezing like this,
Yes.
that person is something special. And I'll share a little bit about this as well. I actually wish I was around that time because I would have ran there with you because Jesse Jackson has definitely influenced me in the way that I think about politics. Definitely, I love his speeches, and he was a phenomenal speaker as well. So what books have you read recently or that stuck with you over the years that influenced your leadership style or how you approach public service?
I have to say, I read mostly fiction. And I mostly read it when I'm on vacation. I no longer have time to just read for pleasure during the regular year. 1 year I read 5 books in 1 week when we were on vacation. It was glorious.
Right.
This past year we had a newborn grandbaby with us and I read half a book. So I would say that I'm more likely to be reading the news. I don't tell anybody, but I still read the Washington Post every day. And we have that delivered to the house as well as the New York Times. As a former journalist, I just think it's important to support media. And I know that they're not perfect. I know we're all mad at Jeff Bezos and some of his actions over the past several months, but he's not the journalist.
Right.
He's not the people actually writing and producing. He's someone who's making decisions above them, and I don't want to penalize them. And since we lost papers like the Prince George's Journal, I really think it's even more important for us to do all we can to support local journalism as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely believe in journalism as well and preserving that institution of, it's another leg of our democracy, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, I was having my master's in journalism from the University of Maryland, and I got my undergraduate degree from Towson in mass communication. So that's a big focus of mine. And when you talk about it being one of the legs of democracy, I truly believe that. And I think it's really hurt us to not have more media.
Absolutely, especially at the local level. And what a tip for you, you should check out Audibles or even our public library system for everyone out there. They have their form of Audible as well that you can, listen to the book. So go check out the library, get you a card. And of course, you can get some books to read to the kids, so you can add those along to it, the grandbabies.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into it. Why are you running for county executive? What do you believe that you bring to this race that no one else can?
This is just such a great opportunity. We have for the next conceivably 10 years, an opportunity to make real lasting change here in the county. We have a tendency to have to kind of go by 4-year increments, and that does generally turn into 8 years. But to have 10 years where you can really focus on highlighting the good things in our county and changing the things that need to be changed, I think it's just such a great opportunity for whoever wins. And obviously, I would rather that person be me. I trust myself more than I trust anybody else. And I know that when it comes to making sound decisions for the county, it's just so important to have somebody who is steady and who keeps the county and its residents at top of mind.
Okay. And so, and on that, you previously mentioned that you aren't a planner when it comes to your career and that you have to do the job in front of you right now. But critics say that you started your campaign for county executive before being sworn in as an at-large council member. How
Yeah,
do you
that's
reconcile
people.
this perception that you're seeking personal desires rather than the job before you?
The people who say that obviously don't know me and haven't spent 2 minutes talking to me. So I kind of blow them off. The reality is, it was not my goal to run for the at-large position. I'm very happy to have it, but it wasn't my goal. I wasn't sitting around saying, you know what I really want to do is run at large.
Right.
No, my intention had always been to run for county executive. We just had a situation last summer that I had to react to in the moment, and I believe I did the right thing. So having the right people in leadership is so critical. And I know that I did the right thing at the right time for the county, not for my personal goals. For my personal goals, this actually makes it harder for me because I had to spend most of my campaign money last summer running at
Right.
large. That makes it a lot harder
Yeah,
for me
yeah.
to run for county executive when that was my goal.
Yeah,
So
especially with, having to ask, the ask, as a candidate say, hey, can you pitch in $5 for me or $10 for me and stuff like that. So I definitely understand it. Well, I do want to ask, so what was the change or the difference between because you said you had to, the opportunity for the at-large seat. What was different or what would be different switching from District 5 to the at-large seat?
well, being at large gives you obviously a countywide platform. And within the county council, there's a tendency to kind of defer to the person who is the district council member. But the at-large members do have a role to play.
Absolutely.
So therefore, when issues come to me, and they came to me as a District 5 council member, I couldn't always get as involved in the issue as I wanted to be because you had to defer to the district person. But as that large position, you definitely have the authority to go ahead and take on the issues as well. So it's a good position to be in.
I definitely understand that, and thinking for the county as a whole is a little different than having a district, and that's what the intention of having that large members where it was to think about the entire county, not just a particular district. Prince George's County revenue structure has long been criticized as off balance, heavily relying on residential property taxes. What's your plan to address this imbalance and sustainable growth and ensure sustainable growth?
Well, there's so many things we need to do to be able to do that. We always say that we need to increase our business tax base, and this is true. The question is, how do we get there, right? And so part of that is with DPI. I think that we have some really wonderful people who work in that department, for sure, without a doubt. We need to have more of them. We need to have more people. That's in fact one of the very few agencies that got an increase in the budget that we passed during this past year. We make cuts everywhere, but we did not cut there. We gave them an increase because that's how important DPI is. And we need to further increase the number of people who work there and also come up with new ways to do the permitting process. So if it takes too long to get a permit to open a business in Prince George's County, businesses just choose to go elsewhere.
Yeah, and I have a question really quick about DPI and speaking of the personnel and leadership. So when under the previous administration, we had Melinda Bowling, who was the director of that organization, and she had been previously under investigation from DC. So how do we ensure that we get quality personnel to lead and manage, our departments? Because having the people doing the work is different from, the as one of my mentors say, the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. How do we make sure that the pack leader is up to speed?
You're correct. It's so important to have strong leadership, and that's up to the county executive, right? Whoever is the county executive chooses those leaders. And the council, you know, we go through a process, but we always affirm whoever it is that the county executive has sent. It's extremely rare. I don't know if it's ever happened that the county council did not say, we accept the county executive's pick. Now, with that in mind, I think the county executive position is even more important when it comes to choosing who's going to run these agencies. Now, I believe that our leadership there is strong at this moment because we have Dawit there. Dawit Abraham is now the head of DPI. He's been there a long time, but he was not in the leadership position. So he came up through the ranks. He's had an opportunity over the last year to really get in there in that position and figure out what's wrong. So I think having the freedom under me as county executive and the encouragement will help him to do a great job in pulling that agency forward. He has other great people who work for him as well. I think they just need to have the authority to make the changes they need to make in order to make things more streamlined. I'm in constant contact with him, and I know how seriously he takes his job. And I know that we can take DPI from the point it is now to the place where businesses look at Prince George's County and say, you know, it won't be hard to set up shop there. We want to come and make money in Prince George's County. That's what we want them to do.
Absolutely.
Because when they're making money, we're making money.
I know that's right. And and back to our budget and you know, spend taxes. People are still wondering how you were able to balance the budget as a council member. Can you break down your specific role and decisions in that process? What specific agencies received cuts, or you know, how did that process work?
Well, the county executive sends the their version of the budget, and I think that's around March 15th. And then from that point, it's in the council's hands. So the council holds hearings and talks to all the agencies. And then there comes a point in May where there are meetings between the county executive and and her designees and the council leadership. So we spend time going over areas of agreement and areas that we need to work through. The one thing that I thought was really effective in this last budget was finding ways to not fire anyone. No one got fired. No one no one lost any money who was a county employee. We just didn't hire anybody for a while. We really delayed hiring a lot. Now that does hurt services. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, because when you're calling the county and you need something addressed, if there are just 3 people who can fill that compared to 6, well, obviously that's going to slow down the process. So, you know, it could have been a lot worse though, had we fired people instead of just not hiring, leaving a lot of positions open for a long time. It made it hard as a government, but it seemed the most compassionate way to get through it. So that's one thing that we did. And another is every agency, for the most part, took a cut. So that's problematic to me for something like social services or the health department. I mean, they're on such a shoestring budget as it is. Asking them to take a cut is really not something that you want to do. On the other hand, we have to fund public safety. We have to fund education, you know, and in this case,
And it's because of the mandates that many of those come with.
There's mandates for education, but for public safety, the mandate is more internal. Like, you know, you need more police officers,
Right.
period. You just need them. You know, you need more firefighters. You just do.
Right.
So in order to fill those basic public safety needs, you have to give them more money. And so we did. We gave more money to the police department, especially to sweeten the pot for when they're hiring people. It helps with bonuses, and it helps them to be able to be a little more flexible on the bonuses. If they find someone, a candidate who they really, really want, but another jurisdiction is trying to hire them with a greater bonus, well, we can match the bonus and maybe beat it. So
Yes.
it's that kind of flexibility that's important to make sure you get the right people and the right jobs. And I know it was the right call to be able to hire more police and hire more firefighters.
Yeah, that definitely sounds great. So, what you basically said you were done was you held back some positions, and then every agency took a cut. So, how does that translate to service? Like, what how will the county see this on the back end?
Well, we hopefully the county is not feeling it. Hopefully the residents aren't. We are in the new budget now where we did fund the really important things. So hopefully people are feeling an improvement of services like with DPI, the Department of Permitting Enforcement, inspections and enforcement. It's really important that we increase the amount of people that we have doing code enforcement and who are also helping with their permitting process. Both are really important to the quality of life of our county and for economic development. So I'm glad we were able to do that, and hopefully people can feel that. I don't know if they have felt the reduction of some of the positions that weren't filled for quite a while, but I think we're back on track now.
Yes, and one of the great wins for seniors in our community was the passing of the senior tax credit bill, but has now been placed on hold by the acting county executive. And you said that the senior tax bill was poorly written, but you voted for it twice. Now that it's on hold due to affordability concerns, why support legislation you publicly criticize, and what's your standard for passing laws to protect taxpayers?
I think that from the beginning, every single one of us has wanted to provide relief to seniors. It's so important, and we all know it. And we're just trying to figure out the best way to do it. While we're working through it, I've been in conversation with the acting county executive, and we've come up with a plan that I think will work. So we still need to work through it with our other council members. But we're going to have something that is more responsible to the county and yet serves the seniors we're trying to help.
And one of the main problems with some of the council members had with the bill was the fact of the limitations on it. They felt like in certain districts, their seniors would not be eligible to receive this tax credit, and they would be left out. So how do we find that balance to ensure that, if we're going to do something for the seniors, that it reaches those who are most vulnerable, or to ensure that it's equity in this program, that it's not actually discriminatory against, based on financial status or any sense of like that? How do we come to a common ground to make it make sense?
Well, the way the bill was written, it had a dollar amount cut off on how much a house could be valued, and the senior received the break, and I think that was $500,000. That's why a lot of people, or some people, were concerned because they felt that there weren't houses in their district that were valued at that level. And that is true, I guess, to an extent. You're going to have more houses in certain districts that have a lower dollar amount that they're valued at than others. That's just how it works. So,
and even as an agent, we understand that property values are going to change. So to put a finite number on a bill, that's going to cause to have to be amendments and different things like that done in the future as well.
Right, absolutely. I really wish that we could do it in a way that reaches seniors based on their income and not on the value of the house. Because what if a senior is really struggling financially and their house is just increased exponentially in value? Well, that senior probably isn't going to be qualified under the current bill. And that's one of the concerns I've had. So the thing is, when it comes to legislation, it's rare that you get much of anything that everybody agrees on 100%. Everybody usually has a little bit of heartburn about part of it. And if you waited all the time to have the perfect bill that you completely agree with, good chance nobody else will. So you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so that's why you end up with these situations where there's a bill that you like part of it, but you don't like all of it, but you still vote for it because what else are you going to do? Like never vote for anything. You don't get your way 100% of the time.
Common ground. And that's exactly what Jesse Jackson talked about as well, common ground. The current council has taken steps to limit townhouse construction. Opponents to this bill says that it stifles growth and affordable housing options. What's your stand on this issue, and how do you approach housing development if elected to council, to county executive?
You know, we hear some people in the community complain about townhouses, but then in the next breath, they'll tell you how important affordable housing is. Townhouses are just more affordable. So I think at a certain point, we have to get our noses out of the air. And clearly, so many people do appreciate townhouses, or they wouldn't be bought so readily. I don't see a lot of townhouse developments going up where nobody's buying them, right? So clearly, there's a market for them. And even though it might be something that we've had to get used to, it's a national trend. This isn't something that's just in Prince George's County. Any place where you have more limited land options, the more houses you can put or units you can put on that piece of land, the more economical it is and the less expensive that that unit will be to the customer.
Right. And especially when we're talking about saving the trees. I mean, you cut down more trees for a planned unit development with single family homes than you do with townhouses. And also you have to think about land value and stuff like that. And I want to talk about something that's made local news, and everybody's been talking about the battle between municipalities. The Hospital Hill project has created confusion between the towns of Bladensburg and Cheverly. What's your take on this issue, and what role do you see yourself in resolving it, both as a council member and potentially as a county executive?
I think that Bladensburg is wrong, you know, and I think that their leaders know that their position is wrong. I'm hoping that they can rethink their position before this goes any further, because for 5 years, Cheverly has been working with the developer and the county on this project. The county had asked Cheverly not to put in an annexation request until after the development was completed. And Cheverly, being a good partner, had gone along with that. So to have Bladensburg truly sneak around their leadership, not their residents, but sneak around and put this in, and it's like they knew that Cheverly was the one who was working with them. Cheverly is completely bordering this project. There's no daylight between Hospital Hill and Cheverly. You can clearly have 1 foot in each side at the same time. Bladensburg came up with this very convoluted line that starts to look like one of those gerrymandered maps in order to try to put in this application. And I think that ultimately it could hurt the project. I've heard the developer be very concerned about this turn of events, and I'd hate to see all the state money that has gone into this project go to waste because Bladensburg is determined to do something that they're not right to be doing. I mean, there are other areas that they've talked about annexing that would have been fine, but for them to take over or try to take over a piece of land that they have no relationship with, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Thank you. And municipalities in Prince George's County often feel sidelined by county leadership. How would you work with them to ensure their voices are heard and their needs are met?
I think it all starts with relationships. And I know that I have strong relationships with the municipal leaders around the county. Most of them endorsed me when I ran at large, you know, just last summer. I haven't kind of revisited them lately for this race to ask even for their endorsement, at least not yet. But I've had really strong relationships with the mayors, with the councils. And just like I give my cell phone number out at community meetings, pretty sure every municipal leader in the county must have my cell phone number. And I do answer texts particularly, not as great at phone calls. If you call me and I'm busy, I'm not going to answer the call. And I'm really bad about checking voicemail, and it's a personal failure. But I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm telling you this is how I am. But if you text me, I'm going to answer your text. I might not do it within those 3 seconds, but I'm going to do it probably by that evening. So
I am so glad that they now have the voicemail to text because, you know,
yes, it
I'm not
is.
going to fault you for it because I don't listen to voicemails either. I'm like, text me, please.
Right. Yeah,
So,
reading notes is much better.
absolutely, because I can get to it.
Right.
Transportation continues to be a key issue. What's your plan for improving public transit, including the metro and the bus, to better serve the county's growing population?
The bus particularly needs to extend service on weekends and in the southern part of the county. There are areas that people down there don't have any other options. If you don't have a car, you're going to have a hard time connecting yourself with even the metro because it's so far away. How are you going to get there? So the bus, you know, back when I was chair of the delegation in Annapolis, we had a moment where we were negotiating things with the state. And I remember in that moment getting an extra $5 million for the southern part of the county for the bus. So back then, even though I did not in any way represent the southern part of our county, I was pushing and supporting and making sure it happened that we got increased service for South County on the bus. And now I do represent the whole county. Now I do represent them. So obviously it'll continue to be a priority. And yeah, we need to look at the routes and make sure that we're giving access to more people.
Yeah, and I'll definitely say, as a person who lives in South County, it is definitely something that's needed. I myself wanted to catch the bus to get to Branch Avenue Station in order to go to the airport, but you know, on the weekends, or you know, it's very difficult and challenging. And also, I worked at Exit Landmark Realty over on Schultz, and one day I wanted to walk to work, and that or catch the bus, and both of those were very, you know, challenging. So you know, South County deserves to have to be looked at a little more as it pertains to those things. Now, on transportation, how do we balance the future with the right now? And to expound upon that, often in our younger minds, especially those who become dependent on cars, doesn't think more about the mature version of ourselves when we progressively age and can no longer drive, or the future generations that thrive on ride sharing and want the walkable communities. How do we balance this the right now with the future?
Well, everybody benefits when an area is more walkable. I mean, no matter if you have a car or not, most people prefer to live someplace that you can get around to places you want to go on foot or on your bicycle. So I've always supported extending our trails. I believe that our trails are only as strong as our weakest link. And one thing that I promote every time I have an opportunity is when you're talking about whether it's bike trails or whatever, if they're not protected, then people aren't going to use them. So you know how you see those bike trails on the road where they just painted a little bicycle in one of the lanes to let you know that's a great spot to ride in on your bicycle if you want to get hit by a car, right? They should just put a little X on your little target on your back on that picture too, because
Absolutely. We definitely have a problem here in Prince George's County with pedestrian fatalities. And that's something that should be explored as well.
no, absolutely. And the more we do to protect bike lanes, you're protecting people. It's not that the bikes you're trying to protect. You're trying to protect the people on the bicycles and increase the number of people who are willing to take a bicycle or to walk. So the more comfortable and the more people feel safe, the more they will take advantage of these options, and it's better for all of us.
There's a glaring disparity in rooftops and development between the northern and southern part of the county, which directly impacts retail and dining options. How would you work with the EDC to address what some see as discriminatory practices? Would downtown Largo or development near Prince George's Community College into Upper Marlboro factor into your strategy?
You know, we have a disagreement, what I can see in the southern part of the county for what people want. Some people want to have big rural areas with as few people, as few cars as possible. And then some people want to have areas with really strong growth. And in order to have the amenities that they're asking for, whether it's restaurants, retail, whatever it is they want, as you were saying, the rooftops have a big impact on what stores or what restaurants come. There are formulas that these stores use to decide where to go. And it really depends on how many people live there, and that would have to do with the rooftops, what their educational level is, because that impacts their income. So if you have people who are very spread out in an area, then that makes it less attractive for a restaurant or for a store to want to come. They're going to make less money, and so therefore they don't want to come. So if we're going to have those amenities, then we do need to be able to put more housing in particular areas, at least, so that the people who want to live like that can have those amenities. I don't think it's fair for someone who wants to live in a very rural area to complain that they don't have a coffee shop next door, because that's just not going to happen. Those things don't go together.
I definitely understand that. And I want to move over to talking about policing and criminal justice and public safety in our county. What's your plan for tackling crime in Prince George's, and how would you balance the community policing with public safety needs?
Well, I think that community policing affects public safety, right? So if we have police officers, if we have enough police officers and they're able to get out of their cars and, you know, have that extra space to be able to walk around and talk to people, that helps us all be more safe. We can't just have police officers who are in their cars, who are removed from the people who they're supposed to be keeping safe. It's just harder for them to do their job. And so one thing we need to do is find ways to increase the number of police that we do have. And that includes their pay and also the respect that they get. A lot of times lately, the last several years, people have not wanted to become police officers because they feel disrespected in their community, and we can't have that. We have to make sure that the police officers we have, to the extent we can, come from our community. If they come from our community, they feel like part of our community because they are. And that's going to help keep us all safer. So increasing police, increasing the numbers of police officers who already live in Prince George's County, I think is just going to be really helpful. Also, we've had problems with youth crimes, and I'm not saying that we're special, right? We've had this kind of problem happen around the country again, but how we handle it it's got to be tailored specifically to our county. We know who the young people are who are creating problems. We already know. There are lists. I hate to have to tell you, but they do keep track. And by using that list in a proactive way, I think we can make a big difference. So I don't think parents necessarily know what their children are doing. They might not know that their child is creating problems in the community. So to be able to have a police officer, and this isn't my idea, this is an idea that came from one of the leaders in the police force, to have a police officer work with someone from social services, you know, go through that list, make appointments with those families and talk to the parents, talk to the young people and see what's going on in their lives and what do they need help with, so you can do all we can to get them on the right track as early as possible, not deal with it in court once they've already committed crimes and someone's already been hurt. So the more we can be proactive, the better. And obviously, the more we can do to make young people feel like they are part of our community, that they are part of the solution, then I think they're gonna be more engaged and be more willing to look out for each other. You know, you need to have young people who are keeping tabs on their friends to say, dude, you can't do that. right? You got to come back over here. This is what we're doing. This is what's better for us and better for the community. So the more that we can support families and keep kids from getting on the wrong track, the better.
Okay.
Parenting, you spoke so passionately about having conversations with your DNA about living while Black, such as not eating in the store, in the grocery stores until items were paid for. Something my mom taught me as well. My aunt is a different story. How does that translate into your legislation when it comes to criminal justice?
Well, I mean, the way I grew up is the same way you grew up, and the same way I've had to raise my 5 sons is to make sure that, unfortunately, that you know that you're being treated different. And just because we're in Prince George's County and it's majority minority, we don't live in a bubble. So we have to make sure that we're raising our children in a way that they understand how they're going to be perceived. And, I'm really looking forward to a day then our whole society changes and everybody's viewed the same, but we're not there.
Yeah.
So in the right now, let's make sure our kids are educated about the world and educated about how to move in the world so that they are as safe as possible. It's scary out there, right? I've raised with my husband 5 Black sons in Prince George's County, and they're all doing well, praise God. But it wasn't always easy, and we worried. We worried. Sometimes we were worried about the police. Sometimes we were worried about people who said they were their friends, and sometimes we'd worry about strangers or somebody just in the car next to them as they started to drive. But
Yeah.
it's
And
very
even with that, we think that, because when I moved here, I saw a lot of African American police officers, and I was really, truly excited about that. And that was a selling point for me as well. But, we also have to think about, how even through law enforcement, there are African Americans and other minorities who still, have discriminatory practices, self-unconscious biases that impact their judgment and thinking as well. And the story that my mom always taught me about eating stuff out of the store until the items were paid for. But my aunt, I remember when Dixie there were the tower of individual candy pieces, and my aunt was like, "Yeah, those are samples. You go ahead and try it." So my mom had to re-educate me and say, "Hey, don't ever do that again."
No, I definitely was more like your mom and not your aunt.
You've described data centers as money printing machines and justify their development as a means to grow our county's budget. Yet there are critics who say that data centers don't create many jobs and have limited long-term economic impacts beyond tax revenue. What do you respond to the opponents? What do you say to them?
I never said that data centers were perfect. I didn't say that they were job creators, although the jobs they do create are well-paying jobs. But that isn't what I said. I said that they are great at giving us tax money. And we've had this budget deficit, like now it feels normal. Like every year we got to deal with a budget deficit. Even the state's got this like almost $3 billion budget deficit. So it's a problem, and we can't act like it isn't. To act like that the only businesses that we can draw in are the perfect business that gives you a lot of tax money and a lot of great paying jobs that don't necessarily require a college degree and don't create a lot of traffic and don't. I mean, there are no perfect businesses, right? We need to have businesses that give us money as well as businesses that give us jobs. And it's great when you can get both. But when it's time for us to balance the budget and we're looking at things to cut instead of programs to add that people will like having the new things, I don't think they're going to be thinking so much about where did the money come from. They're going to say, well, what's wrong with our government? They haven't even done anything to increase economic opportunity here in this county. So it's important that we have every way to bring in money. I think with data centers, what we have to do is to make sure we're including the public at the front end as to where the dogs.
No.
Okay. If it's important that we include the public at the front end, so that we can agree on where they should be. We're never going to be like Virginia where it has hundreds. It's not happening. But the ones that we do have, we have to make sure there's agreement among the public and understanding ahead of time about where there will be. And, you know, I think they have evolved a lot over years. So some of the complaints people have about them are no longer relevant. For example, some people still complain about the amount of water that they use to keep everything cool inside. The ones I've seen use recycle the water. So they put the water in once and they just use that water. It's not where the water is like goes out and is replaced constantly. So you have to look at what the current technology is. There were also complaints about the noise. That doesn't seem to be the problem with the newer ones. So, you know, we just have to make sure. I think that one of the bigger issues we have is where do they get their power from? And who is paying for the infrastructure for that power? And I believe that that needs to be paid for by the data centers themselves and not by the public. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, hopefully they figure out a way to get renewable energy there as well.
Oh,
and I will say,
absolutely.
when we think about this approach, you have to think, remember when DVD players first came out, they were so big and bulky and nobody wanted them, you know,
Right.
and until they change, you know, and now we don't even have DVD players. So, you know, we have to be forward thinking. Developing a site, a site as significant as the old Landover Mall could have been an opportunity to create mixed-use development with housing, retail, and entertainment to enhance the area. Why wasn't that approach pursued? And why do you see data centers and do you see data centers as a temporary fix or a permanent solution for that location?
Well, I have to tell you the truth. When I first got a call from the learners that they wanted to talk to me about their plan for that site, I was sure that they were about to give me this really exciting proposal that included all the things you just said. And when they came in and sat down and said, data center, I was not happy. I mean, at all. And one of the first things I did was call Dave Iannucci and complain. And he agreed with me that it wasn't the highest and best use of the land. However, a bill that we passed in the previous council that was sponsored by council members Derek Leon Davis and Tom Darnoga changed our procedures to make it easier for data centers to come because we didn't have any yet. And we could see them all going to other areas. And we knew that that was just money that we weren't getting. So I'm not criticizing that bill at all. I just want to make sure you understand the context. So in order, part of that making it easier to come to the county, we didn't specifically look at that site, you know, and say everywhere but not that site. I mean, that's not what we said. That's not what the bill said. And so it was allowed. And so once something is allowed and it belongs to them, it doesn't belong to us. That's not public land. So it's
Yeah, a
just
lot
like
of people forget, you know, and think that the council can stop, you know, certain things from happening. And the public doesn't look at it as far as being sued by a private entity for, you know, their constitutional right, you know. So, you know, we also don't want another lawsuit on our hands to try to, you know, prevent something that, you know, is allowable through a law or legislation passed by the county.
exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but I mean, it is what it is, but we have learned from that experience, and going forward, we're looking at ways to come up with an overlay zone so that we know ahead of time where data centers can go and can't go. So
Absolutely.
that way it's going to make it a lot better for the public.
And you described the budget growth as a top priority. Beyond data centers, what are your other strategies to bring more income to the county without sacrificing long-term community needs and environmental health?
Well, one thing that we really need to do is increase the amount of federal money and state money that we get into this county. And I know we can do better. Last year, I found out about a grant that we could, it's an earmark that we can get from the federal government. And I pressed really hard the Department of Environment to apply for it. And I mean, they did finally apply, but it was like pulling teeth get this application in, and it was a simple application. And what it will do, if we get it, is provide $12 million to the county to build a animal control facility in the northern part of the county. We have one in South County, but we need more facilities, we need more space. And it's actually more people in the northern part of the county who actually adopt these animals. So to bring the animals closer to where the people are who adopt them is really important. And to be able to provide better care for these animals. I'm an animal person, you know, and I'm specifically want to make sure that we're safe and that we're taking care of our dogs and our cats. So, and there's a lot of different animals that come through.
Yeah, that's definitely important because I know if there's one group that shows up to the council or to the budget meetings are the advocates of the pets in Prince George's County for the shelter. So kudos to them, and you know, for this huge win. When you first got
we
elected,
haven't won yet, but we
okay, well,
got the application in. You know,
well,
I mean, you have to apply.
it's a start. Yeah, it's a start.
We have to apply, and we need to do better generally about applying, because the more you apply for, better chance you're going to get, and that can bring in significant amounts of money for our county.
Absolutely. And when you first got elected to the council, you said that you were lucky to get the library in your district because you only asked for one thing. With 18 months to go, with 18 months to hold the seat as the county executive, should you be elected, what's one thing that you were going to do or want to do in those 18 months for the betterment of Prince George's County?
I think the one thing that I would focus on first, well, there's so many things that need to be done, but I will prioritize DPI just because that department is so important to be able to find ways to streamline the process so that people can get their permits more quickly and to be able to open their businesses. I know businesses that have tried to open that had to give up because they couldn't get through the permitting process. And that's not acceptable. So we can't say that we want to bring in businesses and then make it impossible for them to open.
So what's going to actually be different? What is it that Jolene Ivey is going to do different from previous administrations? Because I believe the previous county executive and now Senator Angela Alsterbrook, she did something where, you know, she separated some of the departments over there, or said that we were going to streamline it, or, you know, get better tech. What exactly is the problem that's happening, and how are you going to resolve it?
You know, she's done things that have improved things, and you know, I'm not throwing any stones, because when you look at technology in the county and our processes, things were being done on paper, right? That doesn't make any sense. How can you have people have to fill out a piece of paper anymore to do anything? So that was a big win for the county, and I'm proud of her for getting that done. There's so many other things, though. I mean, she couldn't do everything at once. If you look at the time she served, she had 6 years, and she had COVID almost right away. She barely got in, figure out where the bathroom was when COVID hit us. So, you know, getting us through that was really important, obviously. And then, you know, round two, she was spending obviously a lot of time running for US Senate, and I supported her, and I'm really glad that she won. So I think she did make some really good impacts on the county. I'm not going to be running for Senate.
But what is it that you are going to do for DPI though? Like, what exactly is it that you're going to do to improve it?
One idea that has been discussed, I don't want to go into it too much, but there is a way that you can get everybody in the room who's involved with approving a permit, every agency, every department, everybody involved. You have them in one room, and the person seeking the permit does pay a higher fee for this, but they go in the morning and they have every agency there, and they come out at the other end of the day with their permits. So I think that there are a lot of, you know, developers who would look at this, or businesses or whatever. Time is money. The faster you can get through something, the better. So
Yeah.
to be able to have everybody together, I think one of the complaints I've heard, I think since COVID, there have been more people obviously working from home. Well, and I think there's value to being able to work from home, but sometimes it's a problem when somebody comes in for a permit and they need to talk to the person at the next desk, but that person's working at home that day. What if you come in and every single person you need is in front of you and you can get through it that day? That's priceless.
Right. And that along with some of the other principles were sort of detailed in the housing opportunity for all community when they created the comprehensive housing strategy. I want to talk about affordable housing because that goes into, you know, the whole conversation of developers and also with DeepHigh as well. What are you going to do to aid in generating more affordable housing in Prince George's County? And what does affordability look like to you?
Well, let's start with the fact that Prince George's County is the most affordable area in the DMV. We're already the most affordable. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people here who would like to move out of their parents' basement and can't afford to yet. But the more that we can do to produce more housing, period, at every price level, that gets people moving, right? That gets more people into homes. We need like 30,000 more units in the next few years just from people moving here. So the more housing that we have, the more the price goes down. And I know that can make people uncomfortable, but it is just a fact. It's supply and demand. And the more we can increase the supply, the lower the cost will be. So, and that's at every price point. I think it's important to make sure we have housing at the upper levels as well, not only the lowest levels. We need it all.
Exactly. That's important. I just want to say that I have friends who just recently graduated out of Prince George's County colleges that are here and universities, and they don't have a place to live here, and they have to move to Virginia or other places. So even though we have affordability, there is still an issue, you know, with affordability as well.
Well, if they're moving to Virginia, they must be moving way out to like Loudoun County or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, definitely. Further
And by
south.
the way, those parts of Virginia, they have a lot of data centers, and you know what they're doing? They're decreasing their property taxes.
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of housing, what plans do you have for the unhoused?
It's so important because the biggest problem we have a couple of problems when it comes to unhoused people. Now, nationally, the problem is Ronald Reagan, because when he was in power, he decreed that people should be able to be free, to be able to either be housed or not, without regard to if someone is in the right mental state. So if somebody is not in the right mental state and they're choosing to not go into housing, that to me, that shouldn't be allowed. But that's what we have right now. So that's one barrier that we have. It was a real problem with my district when I was in District 5. We had a woman named Michelle who was living on the street at Martin Luther King, over there, kind of across the street from the Target on the side where the Amazon warehouse is. She just piled stuff around her, and it was dangerous for the people walking by as well as uncomfortable. And then for she herself, man, it started to get really cold. It's raining, it's whatever, and she is out there, and we had a lot of trouble getting her off the street. It's not that we didn't want to. It's just she had the ability to tell us no. So eventually she was getting to the place where we were able to have an ambulance come get her because she was basically getting frostbite. It was snowing and she was out there and it was bad. So at a certain point when you're a danger to yourself or others, we can take you off the street. And so she did get some services. She had to go to the hospital for a while and she ended up in a psychiatric place. So in any event, that can be a big problem. Generally speaking, though, the problem is not enough affordable housing for people at that level and people just running into a string of bad luck. So sometimes it's that their medical bills got out of control and they weren't able to keep up, and it's a domino effect. We have
And
to
how would
be.
you balance NIMBYism with building a new shelter for the county? Because we all know that it's much needed for those of us who have visited the shelters and seen, that the conditions where they're in, and also the limited amount of beds, not only for the unhoused, but individuals who are experiencing gosh, I'm trying to think of the word. Domestic violence, when it comes to familial status and being able to be housed, when you have a situation of that, meaning having boy children and stuff like that. So exactly what are we going to do, or what can we do to ensure that there are opportunities for us to house individuals short term or in the intermediary while, they're going through crisis?
I know that we have a shelter on the books that's being planned. I'm not sure though that it's being planned at the right location. And you talk about NIMBYism. We also have to keep in mind economic development. So look at what happened in DC down by what is that called? Ivy City. Okay, you're going into DC and on Route 50 on New York Avenue, and you run into eventually an area that has really gone through a lot of investment and really brought the area back. And then someone made the great plan to put a homeless shelter right there, and that has started to drive out some of the businesses that are there. Because some of the people, not all the people who are unhoused, but the ones who are having some mental health challenges can make it hard for the businesses to remain open.
But wouldn't that be a separate issue? Because, and I know we try to move away from having inpatient facilities because of the stigma on mental health or being one of those. But is it time that, we get something of that caliber to have those patients move into those type of facilities for the care they need?
Well, like I said, right now, the way the laws are, we can't force them into housing.
Well, not housing, but I'm saying into
we can't
okay,
force them
well,
into anything. We can't make you leave the curb that you are
right.
standing on. So, but for the people who do want housing, we need to be able to provide that and to give them the help that they need. So we need to make sure that the housing, that the shelter, for example, is built near where they can get help with jobs, because that's usually the problem that they're having. They lost their job, their job doesn't pay enough, whatever their financial situation is. So if we can pair the shelter with job services, I think that's going to be one way that we can really help people get out of the shelter. We get off the street and then get out of shelter back into the community that they want to live in.
Thank you so much. And before we close, is there anything that you want to get out to the public or say before we end our interview for today?
Well, I'd say that one thing that I did over the past couple of years that I'm really proud of is getting a bill passed that creates more housing for people who have physical challenges. So it started with an idea that then Council Member Monique Anderson Walker had when she was on the council. And, it's more accessible housing. It's called the universal design, is what we were calling it. And she had some challenges getting it passed. But after she left the council, I decided to take it on and see if I could tweak it and make it work. And so I've been able to do that. Starting this time next year, as houses are going through the permitting process, they're going to have to display that they are what you call zero entry. So their doorways will be wide enough, and there will be a flat entryway so that whether you're on a walker or in a wheelchair, or whatever, that you're able to, or even in a stroller, you're able to directly roll straight into where you live. And then the things that are on the first floor, the things you really need, are there on the first floor. even with townhouses, which are more of a challenge for that, we have it set up so that it's easy to be able to install one of those chair lifts on the stair. It's a lot harder with a townhouse to do all the things I'm talking about, but to be able at the time it's being built to put in the electricity at the right spot. So if you need to put in a chairlift that it's already done, makes a big difference. You know, so many of the fixes you have to do to a house happen. They're so much more expensive if you wait till you need it. If you have it already kind of baked into the plan, you might not even think about it when you're buying the house. And you think when you bought the house, when you were 30, that you would never need any of these accommodations. But one day you look around and your grandma moves in with you. At least she could. She couldn't have moved in with you if you hadn't already had your house set up appropriately. Or you have something happen to you, either permanently or temporarily. I mean, things happen. You look around and you're still living there when you're 80, right? You bought the house when you were 30. You certainly didn't think you'd still be there, but you are, and you want to stay there. But if you don't have a house that physically meets your needs, you're going to be forced out. So I just want to make sure that that we're taking care of people at every stage of their ability, and to make sure that people live in areas that are more suited for them socially, because we all know that loneliness is a big public health threat. And the more we can do to build our housing in a way that accommodates people's interactions so that they are more likely to run into each other and build relationships, the better it is for our whole community.
Awesome, and thank you so much for joining us. And we truly appreciate your time here on CAG Chat. And I just want to say best wishes to you on your Russell County Executive, and have a great rest of your day.
And Sherman, don't forget, vote for me.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Well, so I'll go ahead and toss it over to my co-host, because I know they have a lot of comments that they wanted to get through as well.
Can I go? I'll go first. Is anybody else?
Yeah, because Donna muted. Go ahead.
Donna, you muted.
Okay. I'm gonna learn one day. One of the things that I found some of the things that she said interesting. I think we needed more information. I'm just going to be honest, because asking about the plans, for somebody like me, I want to know what types of things you're considering, not just and we can do better, or that somebody else started this and they did this. I wanted to know what she was going to do, and I didn't get a lot of that, in all honesty. The previous things and who else did something, we're trying to get this county, to be productive and to be able to handle the people that are coming here. And what you gonna do for me? That was my concern. Now, it may be just that she didn't want us, not us personally, but she didn't want to give out too much information. But I think that we as constituents should know specifics. And even what do you think you have done? What was the major thing you've done? That wasn't clear to me. So that's my feedback. That's why I knew I could be short.
All right, I'll go next if I may. Again, a familiar face, no disrespect to Mrs. Ivey. I've never met her personally and don't know her personally, but a familiar face that's already part of the political structure that we have now, that's $2.8 to $3 billion in deficit. And they say a lot of, not just her. I'm not picking on her, but they say a lot of things that we as the public want to hear. But in actuality, what we're seeing happen in our county and what we're seeing in our current deficit in our budget, it doesn't add up to that. I just want to address three things. Number one, we talked about transportation and it being available to South County. Or Derek Holmesley is on the line here in that interview because I was very instrumental while working as assistant general manager for the bus, which is the transit system for Prince George's County, in bringing Route 36 to the south part of the county down the Branch Avenue corridor to serve Brandywine, Accokeek, and people coming out of Waldorf. In fact, was so instrumental that had something to do with them putting the bus pad down there right off from Mattawoman Beantown Road, right as you go into Waldorf, in between the Mama Lucia's Pizza restaurant down there and it's a liquor store. Unfortunately, I hate to say it like that, but that's where the bus pad kind of sat. So that was back, people, in 2013. Here we are, 2024, and you still only have one bus servicing that area. You have one bus lot or bus depot on DRC Road in Forestville, Maryland, servicing this whole county from far north as Burtonsville, Maryland, to as far south as Dayton, Maryland. So why do we not at least have three depots? One in the northern county, one in DRC Road, which could serve as the central county, and one further south, and expand our transit system to be a very competitive transit system in this nation. We have not done that, but we talk good about it. But the transportation officials, I don't know what they have in plans now because I haven't been involved in that. But we have to do better if we want to have a number one transit system. I want to address what she said about the police and people not wanting to become police officers because they don't feel respected. Well, that goes both ways. She said she raised 5 African American males, and we don't always do what we are supposed to do, granted, but those of us that do what we're supposed to do, we still can be pulled over and harassed, and we still can get hit upside the head just walking down the street or mistaken for a crime that we had nothing to do with. So I believe that there's respect on both sides of the lines. We have to respect our police officers and the tough jobs that they have to do, but they also have to respect how they approach a citizen, even if they think a citizen is standing in the wrong place. The way you approach that citizen may have a lot to do with how that citizen responds back to you. If you respond respectfully to that citizen, maybe you'll get a respectable response. So there's some work on both ends. And this last one is definitely a pet peeve, and that is the children crime or the youth crime in this county. It has constantly been there. It has constantly been a thorn in our side, and it's usually Black and brown children who are caught up in that situation. And my personal thought on that is that our school system has deteriorated since I've been a part of that school system since the 70s. We were taught respect for our teachers. We were taught structure in a classroom. We were taught to be positive individuals when we grew up and implemented ourselves through our education into society. But our educational structure and the respect for our teachers and the administration that run our school system has dropped so far by the children that they take that same mentality once they have been expelled from school or once they have been suspended, unfortunately, from school by their actions into the same, they take that out into society, into the street. So we have to figure out what we really want. Do we want our children to be able to be implemented into society the proper way? Yes. Then if that's the case, then we should not be taking $64 million out of our school system. From the report we saw and we reported on months ago, we got to stop taking from the departments that will change some of these things that these politicians are saying they're going to do. Thank you. You muted, Tonya.
Okay, I'm gonna let Levon go last. Well, I I was a little lost, honestly. Some of the responses didn't match the questions. And my concern is that it shows a lack of understanding of the position and what it's entailed. So that is my concern after watching that interview. I was the question about the budget cuts and how that was balanced, and not to give any specific answer about what you did to close the budget. It was just too broad. And, because we got to find some way. It's 100, first I heard it gone back down to 150 million. Now I heard it's back up to 170 million, which meant, I guess there's been $20 million more spending since they closed it after the last budget session. So, or the reconciliation session of the budget. So that's concerning because she sits on the council. I was a little also, I don't know if Prince George's County is the most affordable place to live. So again, it sounds like a kind of like a disconnect of what's the reality that's happening in the county. And we got to make sure that somebody is in that office that understands that. Another thing that stood out with me, there was a question when we talked about the unhoused, which was blamed on Ronald Reagan. Now, I'm not a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but that was over 40 years ago. We haven't fixed that yet. We haven't figured a way to fix that yet. So I think it's important for our leaders to understand, we a constant thing that we kind of see on the national scene. We get Republicans in House who blow up the budget, and then we got to get a Democratic president in to fix it. But if you can't constantly say, well, Ronald Reagan blew it up, George Bush blew it up, Donald Trump. Yeah, I mean, you got it at some point say you're going to fix it. So that was that answer was just again showed me it's kind of like disconnected for me. But then we talked. Then there was a mention of a facility not wanting to be built. I think the reference was in Ivy City because people didn't want a facility, patient facility in their neighborhood. One of the things, that's another thing, if we haven't learned anything from Virginia, Lorton, Virginia got their entire infrastructure built by having a prison there. And then when everything was built, they just said, we don't want the prison anymore. But they got everything built from the government. So I don't understand why we haven't learned some of these strategies from our political leaders have not. So it just seemed like a very disconnected response. The responses seemed very disconnected from me from that position. Vaughn.
Oh my, okay. I agree with everything everyone has said. And I'm going to address the elephant in the room. The Ivies have 3 levels of positions in Prince George's County in the state of Maryland and the United States. And no one seems to want to talk about that. Glenn Ivey is a U.S. House of Representative. Her son is a state delegate who, by the way, facilitated her public safety meeting. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. And I don't know, something about that just felt a little bit like a conflict of interest. And then she is a council member. Now, this might not be an issue had Mr. Ivey not admitted on the video about his client, now council member Edward Burrows, when he said on that video that he lived with elected people. So of course he read a confidential document that was mailed to the house. That was a flag for me.
Wow.
Now y'all can go back and listen to the video. If I misspeaking, I will come back and apologize, but I had to listen to that a couple of times. My thing is this, and I know both Glenn and Jolene, and I mean, I'm not socializing with them. I ain't never been invited to the potluck in Cheverly. Don't get it twisted. But I got a phone number, and she's used my number when she's needed to, but she's never used it to ask me to support her. So I'm just going to be transparent about that one too. I support people who ask for my support. Or I respond to people who ask for my support, and I can say yes, no, or how about I serve as a resource if you have a question. She's done none of the above. So I got red notes for her. DPI was restructured under the Baker administration, and it was the Department of Permits, Inspection, and Enforcement for the purpose of addressing not just commercial development, but house improvements. So you want to put a fence up, you want to put a shed up, you want to renovate your house. And every effort has been made over the years to try to streamline and improve the process and the services. And I couldn't find the new office that Angela also Brooks started, where she moved one aspect of DPI out of that. And because that was an additional expense as I saw it. So I'm gonna have to find that, and we'll post it up on our Facebook page. But what I have a problem with, and this gets back to people who have been around a long time, she was in the House of Delegates. Not once did she talk about building, improving, going to Annapolis to talk about issues, her experience as a delegate. Like, don't give me the roundabout, and as I said, seesaw answers. I need you're
LeVar, may I cut in for a minute?
Sure, Sherman.
Hold that thought. So on
I'm 60 years old, right?
We'll write it down, love. So on an interview with the Family Dynasty, it was quoted that with a family of local, state, and federal government, how does anything slip through the cracks? And that's what Glenn Ivey said, Congressman Ivey. So that was to your point.
A lot of stuff can slip through the cracks. It just means you have more opportunity to have your own meetings and your own strategic sessions. But anyway, not that I'm going to accuse anybody, but I'm just saying. And so what I don't appreciate about people who are in the political game is that they act like there aren't people who can read and see and hear through what they are saying and what they are not saying. And so talking about DPI and how great it is, you know what I hear? Based on my experience, I hear, I want the developers to be good with me. So let me talk about DPI and that has really little to do with direct services to community, to the residents, but the residents will benefit from improved services because of the fees that are associated. So has she talked about the fee process or some specific aspect? I heard that they were going to set up a unit to expedite contracts or permits. I don't know that ever happened. So when you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, it's a little insulting and it's not very creative. And the bottom line is, if we don't have money, we can't add staff. If you froze jobs, did you freeze jobs in DPI? You said that you wanted to enhance the police department, but we got to give the police money. And we can't do anything to take money from the schools. But you didn't give us anything about how you're going to increase revenue on the commercial side. Now, I was good with her. Now, I'm not doing this quite a pro and a con, but I was good with her saying that, people are confused about the type of development and amenities they want in their areas. She was right about that. They are confused. But what is your strategy to address the confusion? And as for the housing, two things about housing. One, I don't want to buy a house with universal construction if I'm 30 years old.
Yeah, me either.
And isn't that going to cost more money?
Mm-hmm.
And then but what I would appreciate is the option of buying.
It's the resale value.
Right. But I would appreciate the option of if I'm at an age or I have parents, and like my house, we built our house. We have steps leading up to our house, but we have a first level bedroom. And that bedroom has been used by both my mother, father, and my mother-in-law. I would still not have purchased the house with a universal concept, but if I want that, what I believe they should have had was for the developer to offer the option, not to just mandate that all first level, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Well, let me go ahead and jump in there for a minute, because I actually did sit on the Housing Opportunity for All committee, and I did sit on that subcommittee as well, the universal design. And the thought process is they wanted to get permits, or issue permits or waivers per se, in order to for certain styles of homes, to be built without universal design because of topography or the way the land is shaped and stuff like that. So ultimately, the thought process was, we didn't want to have too many waivers, because essentially then everything would become a waiver, and at some point, none of the houses will be up to standard to not have the necessary to not have to go with that. So the overall thought process was to make sure that universal design was universal design. And I just want to dispel, some stuff. It's not necessarily a bad concept. What it is that they fix the home in order to be accessible for anyone in any point of their lives, and that includes, if you were injured and are temporarily, disabled, or if you are permanently disabled. So that was kind of the thought process of it, because, or if you have to have someone else come into into your household, and also in order to age in place. So that was the most crucial thought process while we were deciding, what to do in Prince George's County pertaining to universal design.
Well, unfortunately, you broke up on some of that, but overall, I think I got the gist of what you're saying. And I'm not against it being an option in an elevation. I just don't think there should be a mandate in the offerings. I think a person should be able to come into a community and say, oh, I would like universal design. And they say, well, here's our design for that. And they block off a certain number of units or lots for that. And if it ends up not being purchased, they can convert it back to whatever. So that's all I'm saying. I get the whole, kumbaya, and people need to do that. But the other thing I just want to say is I don't see any revenue in dogs and being, I just, that whole, that got me. But anyway, I don't want to bash the animal lovers. I want to address lastly the shelter. If the location that she criticized is the one that they suspected it was on the news to be that one that's like at Cheverly, New Carrollton, and Bladensburg crossroads of 450 and 202 at a church, then they don't want a shelter right there because they about to build a multi-million-dollar hospital hill project, right? And so people can look it up. You can search it and find the story. It's never good enough to put anything anywhere, but it's accessible to a metro station. It's on a major bus line. You can take 202 to Rhode Island Avenue, go straight into the city if you need a job. So, and I didn't understand the whole, workforce. We have Employ Prince George's. To me, Employ Prince George's should be partnering with Health and Human Services to help people find employment who are in our shelters, who are struggling. So sometimes the ideas are already there. People just don't know how to package them to make them make sense. The services we have need to be streamlined. They need to be depoliticized, and people need to show up to do work. And the one thing we do know is that when every county executive comes in, they come in with their own agenda. And it doesn't matter. I mean, the day-to-day stuff, the basic services always get done, but we don't have employees who can do the special projects. And I know this firsthand. I'm not criticizing nobody. I know this for sure. You got a special project? Okay, I'm assigned to do that, but I still got to do all this over here. So, I just didn't understand. And honestly, this is my last thing. She said that the reason she ran for the at-large seat was because it was just an opportunity that she couldn't miss because the county needed her. Well, if the county needed you as an at-large member, then maybe that's where you should focus. Because now we got to start again. Should you win, we got to go have a whole nother election. So is it really about what's best for the county? And why not have just waited? Why not have just waited?
Because you won't have the opportunity for 10 years.
That's all I got to say.
Can I say one more thing? Maybe I misunderstood her, but when she said that Prince George's County was one of the most affordable places to live, I didn't think that was the case. It's not even among the first three that come up. So I'm not sure what that meant exactly, but in terms of cost, housing, and cost of living, we're not even one of
That's why I said it showed a disconnect. To me,
right.
Well, we're not now. And somebody who's running for county exec should know that. That's just me. And it was something else with DPI. And, having owned an assisted living in Maryland, I originally was licensed for 3 beds and wanted to increase it to 5. I had the bedrooms, but I wanted my staff separate. At any rate, the process for a developer who built that house was harder for me, a small business who just wanted to expand. The developer didn't have to get new outlets in and all, and the house was brand new. Mm-hmm. New outlets and do all of that, but they put that on me, a small business, to now have to go back and say, okay, I need more outlets. Then I said, so let me get this straight. My family living in the house without enough outlets was okay, and you let that pass. But as a business owner, for me to expand my facility, I have to get new blueprints. I have to be permitted, have electrical, and all of these other things done that the developer built the house a year before did not have to do. I found that interesting, but that's it. Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing? And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the candidates that are running for the county exec seat currently are in a political seat in the county or on the county council as we speak, correct?
I think all but two of the Democrats. I'm not sure about the Republicans.
But the ones that are, there's a $2.86 or close to $3 billion deficit in the budget, and you were sitting in some of those administrations and on those boards.
Yeah, 175.
Right. While these monies were being either inappropriate, allocated inappropriately, or not being used properly. So my focus as a person who would be running for county exec, if I was going to run for county exec and I was within this current administration or in the current political structure, I would be telling the people and the constituents and the people who are going to vote me in what I'm going to do and what my clear plan is to get us out of this deficit. I'd heard that from one candidate. I didn't really hear that from the other candidate. And just a suggestion to those of you who are running it, maybe we will interview you on our podcast, or maybe you will be interviewed somewhere else. I think the people deserve to hear what you're going to do to get us out of this budget deficit and how it is going to benefit the everyday person trying to survive, work, live, and eat in this county. Because historically, the people that get to do that and enjoy doing that are the very people that we vote into offices, into power, so that we can enjoy that. But we continually have monies escape from those of us who are living everyday life, who put our trust in your hands, and we vote our trust into your hands to do this. And we continually in this county digress. So just food for thought for those of us who are voting, and food for thought for those of you who are running for office. You got to make it clear, and then you got to get in there and do what you say you're going to do.
Right. I just want to make sure one thing is clear. These are just our opinions based on the information that we are seeing from the interviews. We are not endorsing or telling anybody don't vote for a certain candidate. We are being neutral and just giving facts.
Well, facts and opinions.
Yeah, facts and opinions.
We're having the kind of conversation that we should be having all the time.
During the debate.
Unfortunately, people vote on emotion and not education or information. And, you know, we got to get by this. You know, this is an 18-month opportunity. It is not 10 years. It is not 2.5 terms. It is 18 months.
Yeah.
And we cannot take it lightly. We just can't play games. I mean,
yeah, we can't. We are suffering right now because of a lack of checks and balances within our government. We're suffering now. There should not have been this runaway spending that has happened between our branches of government. There should have been a serious checks and balances. And so we need someone for county executive who's going to be serious about holding other people, other branches accountable and
Holding
using
their contemporaries accountable.
Yeah, and using the
And not
powers that
worrying
are
about,
invested in your office.
right, we can't worry about whose feelings gonna get hurt and are they not gonna support me the next time. I mean, she was really struggling with her answer about Angela, and I'm gonna leave that one alone for now. But it's a culture, and everybody knows that we have this culture. So stop acting like we don't know that there's a culture of cronyism, nepotism,
blackballing,
like
Well,
for
listen,
real. And this is our opportunity to get all y'all people that sit on Facebook and complain to really make a decision. If you don't want the same old stuff, don't vote for the same old people, period.
The important thing to take away from this conversation and remember is that the council closed and the county executive before they left out closed the structural deficit. Closed the budget for this past cycle. Okay, that's fine. But nothing has changed. We didn't increase our revenue stream. We didn't come across some new dedicated funding source or revenue or anything like that. And actually, we're losing more funding because of the new administration that's going to come in. I mean, that's hypothetical. We don't know, but we're assuming it's more than likely than not. But from the state has a structural deficit at the moment as well. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be receiving 10% less from the state. The general revenues for fiscal year 26 is projected to be 4.7 billion, and that's it's a 3.5% increase, a 3.6% increase over fiscal year 25. But the expenditures are projected to be 4.8 billion. And that's a 6.4% increase, and that's due to education and debt and personnel, and so we have to figure out, if we're not going to tax everybody to death, then what are we going to do? What are we going to do in order to bring revenue into Prince George's County? And I don't mean long term saying, okay, well, we're going to have these infrastructure projects that are going to be coming down the pipeline, because as we see, there's a problem with DPI, allegedly, or not allegedly, apparently, because the councilwoman just said that there are still some things that need to be worked out. So how are we going to rely on sources of funding that's not even here yet in order to pay what we already have? Right. They've already said that we have to stop going through the reserve funds. And I wonder if the council gets it. And that's just all I'm saying. I know, they're going to get the budget from the county executive, but, that's just something that we have to think about. Yeah. And I hope that everybody else here is thinking about it alongside with me. There is definitely budget hearings coming up, listening sessions rather. And I hope that, we come out. I know it's not the most sexiest thing, to talk about or to do, but when we're talking about a AAA bond rating and keeping the county afloat, we don't want to look like Flint.
Exactly. Well, and yeah, let's stop thinking, because there is a good chance we will not get the FBI building. So let's stop counting our chickens before they're hatched, thinking that we have all this money, because my understanding, we kept our AAA rating because of our projected revenues that were going to be coming from the FBI building. We don't know if that's going to happen now.
Nope.
We just don't. So we have got to be, and last thing, when they close the budget, what was being told to us was that $170 million deficit had gone down to $150 million. Now it's back up to $170 million. So we are not being responsible. Our leaders, and I'm going to say we are. Our leaders are not being responsible. So Sometimes a new face is what it takes to shake things up, and we need to really look seriously at the fact that we need to look at the definition of insanity when we think about voting. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, I see people
Awesome.
talking about boots on the ground. What's boots on the ground? What's that? We ain't in the military. We need brains at the table and hands plowing the land, towing and building, and I don't know what boots on the ground is.
All right.
So
Well, we definitely appreciate everybody for hanging out with us, and hopefully that you've learned something today that you didn't know before about the candidates. And we have some tough decisions to make, so I hope that you all don't take it lightly. This is a special election, so not that many people are going to be out there voting. That's being honest with you. But stay tuned next week. We're going to play the interview with Councilman Calvin Hawkins. That's going to be a good one, and also. Yeah.
no, let's say what we said. We have invited all the other two candidates, Senator Alonzo Washington
all of them,
and State's Attorney Aisha Brave Boy, and we are waiting for a scheduled date. Can't wait
tired.
forever.
So, depend on when they respond, So, yeah. Well, I'll do it for the people. That's, I'll do it for the team. Take one for the team or two. But all right, guys, we appreciate you all. And don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share, and all the above. We definitely appreciate your comments, and we hope that you will stay engaged. Good night and take care.